Well, howdy, y'all. Howdy, y'all. How's everybody doing? All right. Man, I am pumped for today. Today we're going to be going through a lot, but one of the biggest things, I want to spend a little while here today because one of the biggest things that people are saying is like, man, I just am stuck at 90%. How do I get my mixes past 90%? They're 80% of the way. 90% of the way there. How do I get that last 10, 15, 20% in my mixes? And today I'm actually going to be showing you what I actually do in real time. Like, what does this stuff actually look like? With all of this, I'm literally going to be showing you absolutely everything. So first and foremost, though, I got to fix my Stream Deck because apparently it's glitching out. Apparently it's glitching out. Of course, of all days, it's just going to be all goofy. It's waiting for Zoom to go back and forth on all this stuff. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. If I go here, Ultra Zoom, how long does it take? Is it going to make me refresh the software? I hope not. I hope not. You know what I can always do? I can force it. I mean, I can switch scenes manually, but that is kind of annoying. I would like to be able to do it with my Stream Deck. So, whoop. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. You never know. You never know if this is going to work or not. It looks like, hey, we're there. Good old unplug and plug back in on the Stream Deck. I love this thing. I can go boom, and I can go boom. I can go boom like that. Boom. It's really nice, but yeah, sometimes it's a little goofy sometimes. All right, now that we got that fixed, let's go ahead and crack open a nice cold can of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Cherry. Cherry Coke, zero sugar. Yeah, it's going to be a long night. All right. While we're getting into this, like I said, today, we're going to figure out, like, this is a song that's finished, it's official, it's out, it's on Spotify, and it's one that I'm allowed to actually share. So, when I get into this and how I want to explain this is, again, we're going to get into all of this today, but the biggest thing that I really want to yap about is finishing the last 10% of your mixes. Now, the reason why a lot of videos get you to a certain place is because there's a lot of missing information, and a lot of it is tailored specifically to you. No one's going to sit down for 2-3 hours on a live stream and try to explain all of this to you. But that's my goal today. So, real quick before we get into it, I want to let you know that I am running the 3-day mixing challenge. It starts tomorrow. Mix a real client song in 3 days. Keep it in your portfolio. This is a song that I am actually able to share the stems with you. It's a real client mix. I was able to share the stems, and they said I could let you guys use it in your portfolio. What? So, links to that are in the comments in the description below. Click on that and join. It starts tomorrow. This is pretty much going to be a one-time thing from what I can gather. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do like portfolio mixes in the future for you guys. Anything in the future that I do on this is probably going to end up being just like mixing practice only. So if this is at all interesting to you, click the link in the description, click the link in the chat, and join. We start tomorrow. There will be recordings available. So if you're not able to join, we're going to be mixing this from start to finish. In 3 days, we are literally going to do everything, including a mix review on Saturday. So Saturday live, I'm going to be going through everyone's mixes from start to finish. I think you guys are going to like it. All right, enough plugging that for now. Don't worry, I'll plug it later on. But I really want to get into the questions that I got. So here's the thing. Your mix is 90% there. That last 10%, last 15% is the difference between something you send to your friends and something that actually holds up next to real records on Spotify, on Apple Music, and everywhere else that you're actually trying to compete with. Because here's the reality of the modern day. When you release a song on Spotify, your music gets compared by default to somebody else's because of what I call the playlistification era. I can add your song, and I can add a song from Architects, from Nothing More, from all of these other bands right next to your song on Spotify. And so it has never been more important to get that last 10% in your mixes than it is today, which is why I'm running the challenge and also why I'm doing this video today. All right. So I have coached over 1,000 producers. I've taught over 1,000 producers, and I've worked with just about every brand of plugin inside of your plugins folder right now. Slate, Waves, JST, STL Tones, Drumforge, so many of them. I've mixed for bands that have gone all over the world. I've again, I've been doing these one-on-one calls with rock and metal producers for like about 4 years now. I went through 600 of them in the last 9 months alone. That is not a typo. That is not a misspeak here. That is 600 in the last 9 months alone. So I went back through the last of those, and I read through every problem people brought to me. This took a long time. As I was preparing for this challenge, I wanted to make sure that I had all the information you could possibly ask for. Now, here's the thing. This is the thing that was actually kind of funny to me. They had different gear, different subgenres, different skill levels. They were in different places of the world, and yet they all said about the same 3 things. They all stalled at the end of the mix. Nobody teaches that last percent. That last 10%, the last 15%. Every tutorial you've ever watched gets you to 90% and then stops. So tonight, I'm answering the questions of people who actually asked me on those calls and your guys's in the chat tonight to really dial in that last bit in your music. All right. So let's go. Again, these are real questions from real mixes from people sitting exactly where you are right now. So I'm trying to make this the most valuable live stream I've ever done. All right. So question number 1. I tried to find a way to like put the questions on the screen, but like if I did that, then I'd be revealing the person that asked it or like the multiple people that asked it. And I was like, I could delete their names, but I just kind of ran out of time. So my apologies on not actually having the text written out. When they're on calls, like I have the transcript of the calls, but it says their name next to it. And I for privacy reasons, you get the point. Question number 1. Am I even at 90%? How do I even know I'm at 90%? This is one thing that a lot of people were saying to me. Is this a mix problem or is this something else? Am I actually even at 90%? Like, can I fix this in the mix? What is actually going on here? So let me go ahead and kind of break this down. So this is what I like to do. I call this like the performance versus the mix side-by-side comparison, right? So every DAW has some type of option for you to do this, right? So here inside of Studio Pro, there's this little button over here that allows you to turn off all plugins, activate all inserts, or deactivate all inserts. Every DAW has some type of button like this. And a lot of times it's one of my favorite things to do is just go ahead and just like, beep, turn that off and see if I'm actually doing something right. Now, again, you're going to notice that a lot of stuff is going to get like turned off like your amp sims, and you don't want that. So I would recommend rendering those out, rendering anything out that is like actually guitar tone or anything like that. And like, you know, your drums and stuff like that, if you're using VSTs, you don't want to disable your VSTs. But you get the point. Turning off all your inserts and then turning them all back on again is a great way to say, like, am I actually getting closer to where I want to go? Or is this starting to sound like an over-processed, freeze-dried, or maybe deep-fried mix? For lack of a better term, I guess. And so I turn this all off and I turn it all back on again to see where things are actually coming from. Is this actually getting better or is it getting worse, right? If it gets better when I turn all my plugins off, then the mixing is the problem. If it gets worse when I turn all the plugins off, then some of the mixing that I did was actually getting me some of the way there. Now, the performance it boils down to really 3 things, right? I have the actual time that things hit in place. So like timing. The next thing that I talk about is pitch, making sure that the pitch is proper. And then the actual, I call it the attitude, but the attitude is like multiple little things, right? And so attitude is very important. I'm going to be leaning into that in just a second. So you're probably thinking like, okay, so it's one thing for somebody on YouTube to say attitude. Make sure that your attitude, like you're actually putting your emotion in the mix. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? This mix should have life. This mix should have attitude. We use all of these little freaking words all the time, and it just ticks me off sometimes. I'm getting passionate about this because it does make me mad, because I was at the spot where someone's like, dude, your mixes are just lacking life. What does that mean? What does that mean? What is life in a mix, right? We need to actually break this down. So I like to use this analogy, but it makes a lot of sense. Somebody may say that I have a lot of charisma, right? Most people don't say that, but let's just say hypothetically, for the sake of this argument, a lot of people are saying I have charisma, right? Charisma is what we call a soft skill, right? Let me see if I can actually pull up the difference between soft skills and hard skills, see what the actual definition is here, and then I'll get angry at the definition. Soft skills. So yeah, let me look this up. Yeah, soft skills, hard skills and soft skills are 2 different types of abilities. Hard skills are technical and measurable, while soft skills are behavioral and interpersonal. That makes me mad as well. But basically, a hard skill would be like technical knowledge, job specific tasks, you know, like you learn a degree, online courses, certifications, things like that, right? But like now soft skills is behavioral or interpersonal traits developed slowly through life experience and daily practice. It's like, okay. So charisma would technically be considered a soft skill. I'm going to actually break that down and actually say that is a hard skill. And again, I'm going to tie all this back into music. Just give me a second. If you say that I have charisma, what does that mean? Does it mean that I stand up when you walk in the room? I shake your hand and I look you in the eyes? I repeat your name back to you? Right? All of these are little things that you would say build up to be charisma. Cool. So I remember the favorite food your dog likes, or the favorite treat your dog likes, and when I come to your house, I bring that over with me. It's like, are those things that when they all stack together, it's like one big gigantic bucket of skills. And because we don't know how to express that to somebody, we just say they have charisma, right? Well, that's the same thing here when we talk about attitude, right? So when it comes to performance, right? If it is a mixing problem, then we need to make sure that the performance is tight, make sure that we break down those three things. We talk about the timing, make sure that things are on the grid or at least as tight as they can be to a certain extent. I prefer having some looseness going on with that to make it sound more human. I'm not a big fan of like editing everything so tight to the grid, but that's my personal preference. Everybody's a little bit different. Especially with AI music right now, people are going crazy to the grid and everything like that. And that's what AI is getting trained on. And so therefore AI is super polished. And because of that super polishedness, I'm really starting to lean more into the unpolishedness sound of a lot of music these days that I really like. But anyway, so we have timing. So make sure that the timing is actually right. If the kick drum hits, the bass needs to hit, the guitars need to hit, make sure everything's actually lined up on the grid, right? I like to think of it like this. We're like, if we have, let's say second 0, this is seconds. Whoa, man, I have no idea how to draw apparently. Seconds. 0 seconds to 1 second, right? Well, I don't need to draw that out, right? If the kick is hitting here, and my guitars are hitting over here, and then my bass is hitting over here, yikes. That is a performance issue, and no amount of mixing is going to fix that. You could fix that with editing, but editing is not mixing. Like, you should know this. When you send your stuff to a mixing engineer, they're probably not going to edit things for you, especially if they're higher up. They're a higher level mixing engineer. They're not going to edit things for you. That is not their job. That is not their job. And so that's just not going to happen. So I recommend either re-recording, editing or editing your performances to get there. Let's say, awesome, Andrew, everything is right tight to the grid. Everything's there. All right. Next, we have pitch, which is obvious. I mean, it's obvious, right? So like, let's say this is an A note here, right? And then up here is, we'll just go with a B flat, right? So one note, B flat, right? Let's say I'm trying to hit an A and I'm kind of like sweeping up into here and I'm kind of coming down over here and I'm kind of coming over here. This is pitch. This is an issue with pitch, right? This could be with your guitars. This could be with your vocals. It could be literally anything. So check and make sure that timing is right and pitch is right. All right. So timing and pitch, check those things first. All right. If those things are accurate, then we need to check attitude. Now, what is attitude? Like I talked about earlier, charisma is a stack of skills. So is attitude. So is life. It actually boils down to multiple different things, right? Again, just like charisma boils down to multiple different things, this also boils down to multiple different things. So first, I talk about volume. So we're going to go volume. Actually, we'll do it up here. Volume. We have I would like to call attack, which is kind of like volume as well. Like if I grab the guitar and I strum it harder, that's adding volume, but it's also adding a lot more of that pick attack that's happening. Again, I'm just going to use guitars for this example. What about the slides in between things, right? So like sliding and stuff like that in between, right? All of these together create what we call attitude. So when I listen to my guitars, I'm like, are they too polished? Are they too overproduced? And it's a great way of just being like, you know what? Maybe they are. Maybe I am not giving them enough attitude. So I need to think about what attitude actually is. Am I digging in with a pick on the strings? Am I changing my picks? The different types of picks you use actually does make a difference when it comes to the amount of tack that you're getting out of things. So once you go down, you actually break down all these things and you say, okay, it's still not sounding the way I want it to sound. Find out what you want it to sound like and then break down, are one of these three things happening? like your velocity, the the drums. Let's go with drums. The velocity, like how hard are you hitting the drums? That's also volume, right? The attack, like where are you hitting the drum at specifically? Are you doing rim shots? There, lots of things can change there, right? So again, things boil down to timing. They boil down to pitch. And then they boil down to attitude, which is a bucket of multiple different types of volume, your actual attack, right? So hopefully this is making sense so far. If it is, let me know in the chat. I like to make sure that I'm teaching things in a way that actually makes sense. Once we know that those are tightened, we check the guitars, we check the drums, we check the bass, we checked everything else. Now what? Then it probably is somewhat on the mixing side, right? So here's the deal. I want to boil down to like what actually is that last 10% in the mix. So again, like I talked about earlier, is it a mix problem or is it something else? It's typically a mix problem if you're trying to get that last 10% in the mix. If you're trying to get that last 50%, I'd say it's probably a performance problem. You probably need to go back to performance, right? But if it's a mix problem, then and they're trying to get that last 10%, then it's typically the mix, all right? Sometimes it's sound choice, the guitar tones that you used. You're trying to get a nice big thal sounding tone like I have here, which again, let me go ahead and play a little bit of this song real quick. A lot of you guys have heard this 100 times already. Kind of thally, kind of aggressive, right? And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that kind of aggressive tone, right? If I was using something different, like a Dietzel, for example, that Dietzel guitar amp wouldn't really work very well for this type of sound that I'm going for. And so sometimes it is sound choice, but most of the time it ends up being a mix problem. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's just talk about the actual mix problem. Okay? So let's talk about that. All right. So now that we're there, we're in the mix, right? What is that last 10%? Typically, 10% boils down to translation. Things aren't translating. They sounds great in your studio. You get it out to your car, and you're like, "What the actual flip is going on here?" We're a family-friendly channel. Sometimes I don't say that. Sometimes I get out to the car, and I actually don't say that. I say other things sometimes, and I probably shouldn't say. But this is a family-friendly channel. I'm not going to say those. I'm not going to. Yeah, this is what happens when I live stream it. Nighttime. But you get the point, right? So when you're frustrated with things, and you're like, I'm trying to get that last 10%, that's usually what it boils down to. It's not translating, right? The low end isn't hitting the way it's supposed to, right? So how do we actually find that last 10%? All right. So here's the deal. The next question that I got was, why does my mix sound papery, thin, flimsy, right? Why are things not getting that punch that I hear? The other question that I got that ties into this and was related to this is why is there no punch in my mixes when I still hear everything clearly, right? It sounds thin. It sounds lifeless. It doesn't sound as full as I want it to. There's no punch. I can hear everything, but it's just lacking that oomph to things, right? A lot of this actually can boil down to the attitude of the performance, but let's assume, again, I'm not going to reiterate this again. I'm going to assume that your performance is solid. We already talked about what a good performance looks like. I'm just going to assume that you're there. So now that we're there, let's talk about the actual mixing side of things. Sometimes when you're lacking that punch, it boils down to what I like to call the ADSR curve, the attack, decay, sustain, and release. Punch usually comes from a push and pull. I was at, I took the kids to a water park, and they had this wave pool. And these waves were like crashing back and forth. It was really fun, like getting in there and the kids were like bobbing up and down in the water. It was a lot of fun, right? But there's a push and there's a pull, right? You would say that those waves had a lot of punch. Bam, right? But if the water was still and it wasn't moving, then it didn't have a lot of punch. Is there the same amount of water there? Absolutely. Same amount of water, nothing changes. The only thing that changes was the fact that the water was actually moving. And so I like to think of it like this, right? We have the A, D, S, R curve. So we have attack, decay, sustain, and release, right? So this is your attack, this is your decay, this is your sustain, and this is your release. Drums are very transient heavy. So drums are going to look a lot like this. Big transient, big spike in audio, and then kind of like die off, something like this, right? A guitar is going to look something like this, right? Where like there's that initial transient, but there's a lot of resonant to that, right? So the attack, decay, sustain, and release is like bam, right? And then it just kind of like slowly dies off. Drums are like bam, and then they really die off quickly, right? That attack, decay, sustain, and release. You can manipulate this in lots of different ways, but most specifically, you can manipulate this with compression. So here on my master bus, if you take a look, I have compression on my master bus, and I'm really giving it some attitude. Let's go here.
Nothing left to do with your pathetic and irreversible
I'm slamming this with some mix bus compression. It's pretty aggressive. Like it's also a very aggressive and pretty heavy-handed mix. But there's a lot of stuff that's actually going on here. So again, you can create this. That compression is moving with those transients. Every time that snare hits, like I'm turning the whole mix down by almost 3 dB when that snare hits. Now again, you can control that with a high-pass filter. That high-pass filter does not, on a mix bus compressor, it does not eliminate the low end. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's not compressing the low end, or I'm rolling off the low end. That is not true. That is not happening. What's actually happening over here is the fact that this high-pass filter is saying, hey, compressor, don't listen to anything below 100 hertz. Anything below 100 hertz, don't worry about it. Don't compress it. Don't listen to it for compression. It's still going to compress everything when it gets triggered, but that is the triggering section of this. So if I go ahead and roll this high-pass filter all the way down, you're going to notice that every time the kick hits, it's also pushing that needle back as well. It almost adds a little bit more attitude when that kick is in there, but it was compressing it a little bit too much for my liking. Every time the kick hits, it felt like the mix was like, whoa, 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 you know, kind of like moving a lot, right? So I went ahead and I just actually rolled up some of that high pass filter. So that way it wasn't listening to the kick too much when it would come in. Is that, I do want to check, is that mix kind of distorting for you guys over there? Because like sometimes when I send stuff to OBS, it does distort a little bit. If that is, let me know. Because I will fix that. I might actually I can see that it's redlining in OBS, and I want to make sure you guys are actually hearing like an accurate version of the song here. So if it's not redlining, it may be a little quieter, but this should be a bit better. Check this. Awesome. That should be a bit better for you guys. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. And we want to make sure that we're actually controlling things with compression. We have options for that with compression. Again, I'm doing this right on the mix bus. You can do this on the drums. You can do this with anything that you feel like needs punch, which really boils down to what is punch, where is punch coming from. Clarity and punch come from different places. I talk about this in the lightning analogy all the time, but I like to think of it like this, right? Let's say we have a drum, and the drum is this. Boom, really big attack, and kind of coming over here, right? And now I like to imagine it like lightning in the sky, right? And then, of course, you know, our thunder, right? So we'll put our thunder clouds in here, right? Make them look like clouds. Look at that. They're happy little clouds. I'm the Bob Ross of Microsoft Paint over here. But you get the point. So what happens here is this initial spike in audio is what I like to think of as the lightning. When the lightning strikes across the sky, it lights up everything. Creates a lot of clarity for you. But over here, this boom is where the thunder actually happens. Now, real quick question. When you see lightning come across the sky and then you hear thunder, which one hits your chest more? This over here. So when you're looking for punch and you're looking for attitude, a lot of times it doesn't come from this initial attack. It actually comes from down here, which is what happens when the drum actually resonates. It's that boom, it's that bigness, it's that fullness, right? So when you're going in and you're adjusting stuff on your drums, there's a couple ways of doing this. You have opportunities for gates to control how long and short that thing is. You can use transient shapers if you want to. You can use clipping. I'm using a little bit of clipping here. I'm actually using Infect Your Mushroom Pusher for the clipper here. But you can use clipping inside of your drum bus as well, where you're clipping off those initial transients. Lots of really good stuff that you can do to control that and get more punch out of that later part of a drum. Okay, we don't want to turn everything down. If you turn everything down, then you're still getting that, just like your drums just kind of lose that initial umph. One of the questions that I got when I had made a post about this, let me actually pull this up on my YouTube channel. I made a post talking about tonight and how I was going to be making this live stream tonight. And someone had made a great comment. See if I can actually pull this up. This is what they said. Said you should also touch on shout out to Murdworks. Hopefully I'm getting that right. But they said that you should touch on what to do if your mix sounds awesome, but it's frying with unwanted distortion because everything is at 11 or 13. When you back off the dBs across the board, it doesn't hit as much. Keep fighting the fight. Which is a fantastic question. A lot of that boils down to that initial attack and transient here, where like this is starting to distort your mix bus saturation, your mix bus compression, a lot of that other stuff. But down over here is where that actual punch comes from. So you're getting more punch, but then this is causing a lot more distortion, right? So again, you can use compression, you can use clipping, you can use even some saturation to kind of roll out those transients. There's lots of different things that you can do. Again, is if you are clipping on your master bus, does it sound bad? Is it actually adding a lot of distortion? If it is, then to go fix it. But if it's not, then just don't worry about it. It doesn't matter that much. Honestly, it just doesn't matter. There are many times where like if I turn off everything here, like I'm hitting like +2, right? But I'm also fixing that where I add like a bus clipper in here and I'm going ahead and I'm clipping off some of those transients that are coming through initially on these drums. So I'm hitting more of that there and giving myself a little bit more headroom as well. So yeah, let me go ahead and hit some of the stuff in the chat. Gabe, good to see you here, man. Holder of the Joel. I love that. What's up? Love the channel. Dude, glad you're here, man. Glad you're here. Andrew Jackson Music. Hey, Andrew, how you doing? Man, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing? Honestly, how are you doing? Dude, I couldn't be doing any better. I'm talking about music tonight. We're making some music, and I have my Coca-Cola cherry. It just couldn't be any better. I love it. All right. Let's keep going here. All right. One of the next questions that I got. Man, we're gonna have to get cruising. I'm already crushing through this, and I've only touched on like 2 questions. I love it. All right. The next question is, why is my low end undefined? This wasn't exactly what people were saying. They're like, why is my low end so muddy? Why is my low end so messy? How come my low end is not punching the way I want to? Like, what is actually going on? And so, again, I kind of rephrased it as, why is my low end undefined? That's what people are saying, or that's what people are trying to say without actually saying it. So if you've ever asked yourself, like, why is my low end not punchy enough? Why is my low end not hitting the way I want to? Why is my low end so boomy? Why is my low end so thin, right? It all boils down to the same thing. It is undefined. So first, we need to define where the low end in our mix actually is. Now, first, we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab an EQ. Psych! We are not going to grab an EQ. I almost had you there. We're going to grab our faders. Where in the frick is our low end inside of our mix? Again, our drums, our bass, like where is the low end sitting, right? Andrew Jackson, this is not doing enough squats. Gotta do some squats in your mix to get that nice thick low end, my guy. But first we got to grab and figure out where our low end is actually hitting. So I have decided that I want my drums and my bass to be filling out the low end. That is the majority of where I want the low end to be. So now that we've defined what should be hitting in the low end, let's take a look at those. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solo my drums and my bass. Really hitting a lot of that low end. Now, when I was making this decision, I had this 808 here at the beginning because I kind of have this like hip hop trap kind of intro, very Thal Throne style-esque kind of thing. And I wanted that initial hit to sound absolutely massive, right? And it does right now, where it's like it comes in and it's just like boom, like busting through a wall. It didn't sound that way originally, and I was like, what's going on? So I kind of go in, and I'm like, all right, let me define where my low end is in my mix. This is what happened in the mix. And again, like I wasn't sitting there thinking about it. It's like second nature now, but it wasn't always. And so sometimes you have to sit down, you have to define where your low end is going to sit. So I know that I wanted my low end to be in my bass. I wanted it to be in my drums. Now here on this 808, this 808 had a lot of low end in it, and I used an EQ to roll off some of that low end, like up to 75 hertz, y'all. Like a lot of an 808 sits below there again with a 12 dB over octave, so it is more of a gentle slope. I still wanted that to hit, right? But you can see like I'm cutting that fundamental here, right? So without this EQ, this is what it sounds like. And then without me like absolutely slamming it with saturation and also kind of like folding those lower frequencies over, it sounded like this. And again, it sounds good on its own when I solo it, but like when I try to play this with the rest of the track, there's so much low end that by the time this part hits with the drums and the bass, it just lost its impact. It just felt equal, right? We need contrast. There is no light without dark. There's no up without down. We need contrast to understand. When astronauts get into space, they have no idea. They have no context of like what is up and down. They don't know. They're floating and just like there is no gravity, right? So because of the fact that we have gravity here, we could say this is down because gravity is pulling me down, right? Somebody on the other side of the earth is pointing down, which is technically pointing R up, and they're saying that's down, right? So we all define that down means towards the center of gravity here. Again, we need that contrast. And so what I did was I saturated it because it sounded awesome, but I also folded off some of those lower frequencies. And so like listen to when I add the saturation, it actually kind of makes the low end hit a little less hard because of the fact that I'm just saturating it and folding the frequencies over, for lack of a better term, folding the frequencies, but you get the point. A lot cleaner of a low end, and then it's kind of like really dirties it up. And then with the EQ, so like in solo, you're like, no, it hits so much harder without that EQ. But that's not the point. What I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to get this part to sound way more impactful. I also had it on this drum loop here as well, where I actually rolled off a lot of low end and even cut more of this 100 hertz. Without it, again, make sure you're listening on headphones or something other than a phone speaker. If you're watching my live streams on a phone speaker without any headphones or anything like that, like I'm glad you're here. Go find some headphones. Because I'm talking about stuff that actually matters. Okay, so if you turn this on and off, again, make sure you're listening on headphones or something like that so you can actually hear the low end difference. Lot of bite to this. Right? But with the EQ on, I'm taking a lot of that out. So again, real quick, I'm going to turn the EQ off on my drum loop and off on that 808. All right? So let's go ahead, turn those off. It kind of loses that impact. Now I'm going to turn the EQs on, making them sound thinner before it goes into this moment. It's like, oh man, it just hits so much more when I go into that intro. And I did nothing to the rest of those. What a lot of people would do is they're like, when the guitars come in, everything comes in, it's not hitting as hard as it should. So let me go ahead and let me grab an EQ here and let me start turning up the low end on my drums. And it's like, oh man, or you could have just left it alone and it probably would have been just fine. Honestly, probably could have just left it alone. You just needed to control what was happening before it. Again, contrast matters. Contrast matters. Jeff, man, good to see you here. This channel is everything I need. You teach and explain way too good. Dude, I love it. Dude, I'm glad. I'm glad you're getting a lot of value out of this stuff. We're going to be hanging out here for a little while. So, pull up a chair. Grab a drink, grab a snack. Again, just a quick reminder for those of you guys that are just showing up. The 3-day mix challenge starts tomorrow. If you guys are interested in getting the stems from an actual client that I worked with, and they are allowing you to use it in your portfolio, you can literally like share this and say, hey bands, this is a mix. This is my version of the mix that I did for this song, and you can use it in your portfolio, which I think is absolutely banger. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get a chance to do that again with a band. And so because of that, I want to make sure that I'll let you guys know about it. So if you guys are interested, links to that are in the chat, in the description of this video. And you can click there and join. It starts tomorrow. There will be recordings available if you can't make it. And Saturday, we're going to be doing a mix review. You guys will be mixing this song with me, start to finish, and I will be reviewing your mix for the whole thing as well. All right, let's get back on into it, shall we? Let's get back into the questions, shall we? All right, so This is yeah. When it comes to a low end being undefined, we need to define what the low end is. Now, I get it. Like I said earlier, a lot of the people that were on the phone with me are not saying, "Hey, it's undefined." They were saying all of these things like it's muddy and it's murky. It doesn't hit like I want it to. There's no punch, or it's too thin, or it's lacking life. It boils down to just this. Choose the 2 things or 3 things at most that is filling up your low end. And then make sure that those are hitting the way you want to. Ignore everything else. And I'm not talking about taking an EQ and cutting the low end off of everything else. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm just saying if you've added a sub bass and you've added a bass guitar and you have kicks and then you have 3 other kick samples that you're layering along with your main kick, you're causing issues in the low end. Now, here's the thing that most people don't want to talk about. I don't know if they don't want to talk about it. Maybe they just don't know about it on YouTube. I don't know. There's a lot of I was talking with somebody who has won lots of prestigious awards in the music industry. We'll put it that way. I don't want to say who they were specifically. But we were on the phone, we were talking, we were kind of going back and forth, and there's somebody who's won lots of awards, has had stuff that like it's pretty impressive. Thousands of mixes done. And they used a term that I thought was hilarious. And they're like, I love your content. Your stuff's really good. It's refreshing because there's a lot of people in the industry that are what we call pretengineers. Pretend to be engineers. Pretengineers. I was like, what a phrase. Pretengineer. And so again, when you go to YouTube and you take advice from people, I'm not saying you should take advice from people who have won Grammys and things like that. I'm not saying that at all. There's lots of people who've made great music that have never won Grammys ever. I'm saying you should listen to people who are making music that you think sounds good. And if that means you don't watch my channel, then good for you. Please leave my channel and go find somebody who makes music that you think actually sounds good. If you're listening to my mixes and you're like, man, I think his mixes are trash, dog, then go. Honestly, go and find somebody that, because I'm not, this is not to say anything negative about anybody on the platform, but again, like probably right now you're watching a lot of EDM channels and they're teaching you mixing for EDM tracks and you're hoping and praying that it'll just somehow magically transform to your rock and metal mixes, and it just won't. It just won't. It just it's not the same thing. What if I took my glasses off and I slid them across the table and I hand them to you and I said, put these on, they fix everything? Like, no, they're not going to do that. Of course they're not. Now, I'm going to say, glasses don't matter. Of course they do. But the glasses were meant for me, not for you. And a lot of these mixing techniques that you're seeing are meant for someone else, not for you. So if someone is making music that sounds good, first, before you take advice, take teaching, take courses from anybody, make sure that you are, at the very least, think their mixes sound superb. They sound great. Secondly, if you can, find somebody who's making music in the style of music you want to make. They're going to teach you things that no one else can teach. I'm just going to put that out there. A lot of you guys are watching EDM channels right now and hoping and praying that you can translate some of those EDM techniques over to rock and metal. And trust me, I tried. It doesn't work. Not all the time. Some stuff works. Most of the time, it doesn't. I'm just putting it out there. You're trying to put a pair of glasses on for someone else onto you and hoping and praying that it helps you see better. But the chances of that are slim to none unless you have the exact same condition someone else has. This is the exact same lack of eyesight that someone else has. And the chances of that happening, very slim. Just putting that out there. Andrew Jackson Music. How much separation do you put between songwriting, production, and mixing? That's a big thing for me. I can't seem to focus on one part and everything turns into a big mess. Oh, fantastic question. We need to actually break these up into stages. I was talking with this, again, I'm just going to call him this individual because you guys will see, the other podcasts that I do and some stuff that comes out, and you'll hear how these answers, but I can't talk about them just yet. But I was talking with this person who, again, thousands of songs that's on their belt and win lots of awards. For their music. They were talking about this exact thing, which is you are being you're the recording engineer now, you're the writer, you're the band, you are the mixing engineer, you're the mastering engineer, now you're the promoter. Like you're doing all of these different jobs. And what happens is they all kind of get a little blurred, right? So if you're recording the so let's say you're the band, right? So you're a one-man band. You're trying to make your own music, right? But there's like other subsets of skills that need to happen. So the band, actually, let me put it here. The band, You're a one-man band, right? Let's just say you are. Maybe you have like 2 other people in the band or whatnot, but you're doing the majority of the work, right? There's other skills that have to happen. So, right? So now we have the recording engineer. So we're just going to say rec for recording. We have the other guy that is going to be doing all of the mixing. We have somebody else that's going to be doing a lot of, again, the mastering, right? And so there's all these other skills. You have a promoter, right? So like a lot of bands, they're going to end up having a promoter who's going to handle all the promo. And so all of these different skills gets music out the door, because the whole point is music in your head, right? Out to the world to see. That's the whole point. Music in your head that goes out to the world to see. That is awful writing. Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive. I'm sorry about that, but you get the point. From your head to the world. You need to do all of these jobs if you're trying to do this yourself. Now, again, you're probably going to sit there and think, oh my gosh, this is super frustrating. I don't even know if this is possible. It absolutely is possible, but just hear me out. Give me a minute. You have to do the job of, we haven't even talked about songwriting, by the way. Like I didn't even hit on the fact that like you gotta write good music, right? Which also means that a lot of times, like there's producers as well, right? So for the sake of this, let's go over here and just prod for producer, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different jobs that you are now trying to do yourself. Now, this person that I was talking to has been in the industry for an extremely long time, like an extremely long time, and they said that one of the big things is the fact that you are taking all of these jobs, and now they're starting to get blended together. And so people like they become a jack of all trades, but end up being a master of none. And it is one of the questions that I wanted to ask was like, how have you seen this? Because again, like when I started to get into the industry, home recording was being made a thing, right? Like I've never recorded to tape. And so what happens is you have all of these skills of all these different people, and they are now kind of split. The band is doing the promotion, they're doing the writing, they're doing the recording, like they're doing a lot of the producing now. Like maybe they're sending stuff out for mixing and mastering, but like a lot of the bands are doing a lot of stuff themselves. And that's also because a lot of labels don't want to pay out for this stuff anymore. But think about this. Each one of these used to be a full-time job. Writer, recorder, mixing engineer, producer, the promoter, the mastering engineer, the band. Every single one of these were a full-time job for somebody in the industry not that long ago. Now it's all up to you. Yikes. So here's how we actually have to manage this. There is this fantastic book called The E-Myth Revisited. I absolutely love this book. I thought it was phenomenal. But yeah, let me see if I can actually pull up an image of this book. But yeah, if you ever see this book, I do highly recommend picking this up. It talks about like small business and stuff like that, like why why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. The whole point of this book is, well, there's one specific chapter in the book. I do recommend reading it. It's very good. But there's one specific chapter in the book where he says, when you're a small business, you need to wear multiple hats. You are working on your business and then you're working in your business, right? So like for me, it's like I have to do mixing and I have to do mastering, I have to do production, I have to send this stuff out to clients, but then I have to put my business owner ad in and I have to do my taxes at the end of the year. And I have to make sure that I send out emails and collect the other 50% payment. I take 50% up front and then 50% on the back end when the project is done. So then I have to do all these other jobs, right? So each one of those is like a separate job, right? So when you are doing this, think of the hat you're going to wear. Honestly, like I know one guy who would actually like have a specific hat he would wear when he was doing a specific task. It just kept him on track. The guy had like ADHD to the max, but it was almost like a superpower for him. But anyway, so like he'd like physically like put on a different hat. He's like, all right, mixing time, hat goes backwards. And so what you got to think of is, what are the different hats that I'm going to wear? When it's time to write, then just stick with writing. Don't grab a freaking mixing plugin. Don't do it. Don't. Just write. Just frickin' write. Get from point A to point B. I call this horizontal producing. So horizontal producing, which by the way, like some of these things that I say are not industry standard terms. They're things that I made up so I can help teach this skill to other people. But horizontal producing means that it's like this. I'm going to go from intro to outro as quickly as I possibly can, right? I'm going to grab my drums, my bass, and my guitars, and I'm just going to rip it from left to right as quickly as I possibly can. All right, cool. Songwriting done. Now, producer hat on, guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to produce this out. I'm going to start adding some other elements to this. I'm going to start bringing in some extra guitar layers. I'm going to start grabbing some extra vocal layers as well. I'm going to start grabbing some of these different layers, some of these different elements in here. I'm going to start messing around with some of that stuff, right? Now, producer hat. I feel like the song's produced pretty well. All right. Time to put on my mixing engineer hat. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start mixing. You have to think of it this way. So again, Andrew, to answer your question, how much separation do you put between songwriting, production, and mixing? I put as much separation as I possibly can in between each part, so that way I am staying as focused as I can. Now, again, the one big pushback that I get is, hey, Andrew, what if I got all the way into the mix and I realize there's an issue with the production? Should I just abandon the song? And it's like, obviously not. That's where, what would you do if you hired out, like, and think of it this way, what would you do if you hired this out to somebody else? The mixing engineer comes back to you and says, hey man, the production is going to need a little bit of fixing. I think the drum samples were, which by the way, drum samples, like sample replacement and stuff like that, is actually really a producer's job, not the mix engineer's job. Just putting that out there for the most part. But he's like, hey, I'm going to, like, these are probably going to, these different samples, like, you guys are looking for something that's more like Saint Anger, and that snare in Saint Anger is very high tuned, and the snare that you have right now is not high tuned. I'm not going to be able to mix it the way you want to without that. So what would you do? If you hired all this stuff out done, you would go back to the producer, or you go back to the recording engineer, and if you recorded it yourself, and you say, hey, we're going to need to use a different snare for this, and then you do that. All right? Does that answer your question, Andrew? I hope it does. Oh, man, I'm getting fired up tonight. I love this stuff. Dude, great questions, guys. Great questions. Again, join the Mix Challenge. Links in the comments, links in the description. We start tomorrow. So pretty much by the end of the stream, I'm probably going to be full in all spots. So when the stream ends, most likely, most of the spots are going to be taken. All right. You can go ahead and click over there and get on into it. All right. Great questions. All right. One of the next questions that I got is, how much is too much? Whether that's compression, that's saturation, whatever that stuff is, right? So people are like, man, I'm adding some saturation, but I feel like it's too much, or I feel like it's not enough. What do I actually do here? And I think this is a fantastic question. But what it boils down to is, what is too much for you? I think that in this 808, like, again, I had the super distorted 808 here at the beginning. Now, I want you guys to ask a genuine question. Is that too much saturation? Honestly, like, think about it for a second. Like, pull yourself out, like, from the thought that this is a final mix, because it is, like, what you're hearing is, like, actually out on Spotify. Just pull yourself out of it for a second, and think, is this too much saturation? Right? Compared to, this, which is, like, super clean. Is it too much saturation? Maybe. Is it too much saturation for what I'm doing here? No. This is the big caveat. Is it too much? Is what I'm doing too much? Is that too much saturation for this rock and metal track where everything is distorted to the hilt anyway? No, of course not. Would this be too much saturation if I was mixing a hip hop beat? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You bet your bottom dollar that this would not hit in a car the way that it would without the 808. The raw 808, and then with everything on it. So when you're asking yourself, is it too much? It really boils down to the fact that you have not defined a reference track. You have no clue what you're trying to get at. If you do not have a reference track, use one. Just frickin' use one. It is not that hard to go find a song. I have a playlist on my Spotify, on my personal Spotify. I'll show it to you guys. I won't play any of it because I don't want ads on this video. And if I play copyrighted music, ads will just show up because that's the way YouTube does. Someone's going to claim the video and say that that's their money now, which is fine. I don't care if they take the money, but then they're going to put ads on my video. And I don't want you guys to be watching this live stream and all of a sudden, bam, bam, ad roll. I hate that. I hate that stuff. So anyway, I want you guys to actually enjoy this stuff without getting blasted with ads, which means that I don't make as much money, but big deal. Big freaking deal. So I have playlists on my Spotify called Epic Music. This one called Epic Music That Slaps Harder Than Will Smith. That's funny. And then I have other playlists as well called let's see if I can actually find it here. This one's a great one. Metalcore songs I wished I produced. Right. So again, like I add just like a handful of them in here. Like I haven't added any in a while, but anytime I'm like, man, this is just a phenomenal mix or a phenomenal song, I go ahead and I just throw that on here. Right. And so I just toss these in here real quick. So anytime you listen to a song on Spotify and go, man, I really wish I mixed that. Like I wish I made this song. Add it to a playlist called Songs I Wish I Produced. And then next time you're looking for a reference track, you already know what you like now, right? So when you're asking yourself, is it too much? Is this too much? Is that too much? Ask yourself, was it too much compared to the song that I am referencing it from? If you don't like the idea of reference tracks, I don't know what to tell you. I know there are people out there that like despise reference tracks. I've talked to people that have despised reference tracks and they're like, I refuse to use reference tracks, but then their mixes absolutely slap and it sounds like a lot of other stuff they listen to. I'm like, so you never listen to music ever? Like, again, reference tracks, I don't really like to call them reference tracks as much as I like to call them inspiration tracks. I'm taking inspiration from a specific type of sound. I really love the fullness of Heavy Rain. Again, I would love to play it for you, but then they'll put ads on this video, and that's frustrating. But again, Heavy Rain is great because it's a massive mix. Like there's massive synths, massive guitars, lots of other stuff, right? So anytime I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'd love to check this out. You can go through and you can actually listen to that and go, oh, is it too much saturation for that song? No, then it won't be too much saturation for my song. If you're asking yourself, is it too much? Are you overcompressing or undercompressing? Are you oversaturating or undersaturating? Are you overmixing or undermixing the whole mix? Listen to your reference track and ask yourself a genuine question. How much was it for them? People are going to take your song and throw it on a playlist in Spotify right next to somebody else's. It's just what happens. It's called the playlistification era. It's just going to happen. So you need to make sure that your stuff stacks up, which also means that people are going to compare yours to someone else's, which means that if it is too much saturation compared to the other songs in your genre, and again, if you're like, man, I don't, the kind of music that I make isn't in that genre, it's like, okay, but people are going to listen to it and they're also going to listen to other music. So what other song on Spotify are they going to throw your song right alongside in a playlist? Find what that song is. You probably have them already. Just make a playlist called Songs I Wish I Produced, and you'll be good. You'll be good. All right. So now that we're talking about references and stuff like that, let's assume you are using a reference. Now, this is the next set of questions that I got. Man, we're an hour into this, and I haven't even answered a third of the questions. We're not going to make them through. We're going to make them all tonight. All right. Again, these are actual questions from calls that I got, over 600 calls just in the last 8 or 9 months alone. Lots of questions. So one of the biggest ones was, why is my mix smaller than my reference? Right? Again, so let's assume that you do have a reference. You do pull up AV, like Metric AB or something like that. You're comparing your mix to someone else's mix, right? Like if you're doing that, awesome. Now, why does yours always feel smaller, right? Now, the first question I ask is, does it feel smaller in your studio? Does it feel smaller in your phone speakers? Does it feel smaller in your headphones? Does it feel smaller in your car? Or is it feeling smaller everywhere? If the answer is it's feeling smaller everywhere, it can boil down to a lot of different things. I usually start with like, man, if it sounds, how bad does it sound? Like, is it lacking 5%? Well, we could probably fix that with some mixing, maybe some mastering. But if it's lacking that like 30%, 40%, we may need to actually go and see maybe it's a different set of drum tones. Maybe you just threw on Easy Drummer because you felt like it. You're like, well, I have Easy Drummer, so I'm just gonna throw on Easy Drummer, right? But maybe the song didn't need Easy Drummer. Maybe the song needed something from Giga Drums, or maybe the song needed a different kick or a different snare that's in Easy Drummer, but you just loaded a black metal preset in Easy Drummer and called it good, right? Be more specific about the sounds that you're using, right? My brother's a drummer. He built a drum studio behind his house, so we don't have to record in studios. Literally built a drum studio separate from his house. Like, think about this for a second. This kid, he's not a kid. He's literally like a year and a half younger than me, but I still call him the kid. But this kid built a drum studio in his backyard, separate from his house. And he is meticulous about the sounds that he uses on his drums. You're trying to get a professional sounding mix. He is just trying to get great sounding drums. That's what he does. He just drums. He doesn't have he has a DAW, but he doesn't really use the DAW outside of recording drums, right? Like he's not producing songs. He's not doing this, right? And he is so meticulous about the snare drum that he uses and how it's tuned, the different heads that are on it, the different sticks, whether they're dipped in like plastic at the tip or not, like all of this stuff. He's so meticulous about. The where the microphone is placed on the drum. Like if he's that meticulous about his drum tones, then why in the world would you just throw on a preset from Easy Drummer and say, well, they gotta be good? Like let's be a little bit more intentional about the stuff that we're using. Let's assume that you've gotten to that point. You're intentional and it's still missing. Then usually it ends up boiling down to the mixing or the mastering, which can fall off a little bit. Again, compare it with your mix to someone else's mix, and if it's not as loud, then hit the master bus a little bit harder. If it's lacking some of the low end, identify where your low end is. If it's lacking some of the mid range, identify where your mid range is. What instruments are you using? I'm not talking throwing on an EQ on your master bus. I'm talking about what instruments are you using. The guitars are filling up the mid range. The synths are filling up the mid range, right? So stay focused on that. And then if it sounds good in your studio, but it doesn't sound good in your car, doesn't sound good on your headphones or somewhere else, then that is what boils down to what I call mix translation, which is the next question, which is it sounds good in my room, falls apart everywhere else. What's going on? So if it sounds great in your studio, this is so common. This is like one of the most common questions, which is like, it sounds great in my studio, but it doesn't sound good anywhere else. Your room is lying to you, right? And it's not the fact that it's lying to you. You don't know it well enough, right? Let's say we met on the street one time. You come up to me, you have a conversation. You don't know I produce music. You don't know that I do mixing and mastering. You have no idea about anything about me, right? So you leave the conversation, and the only thing we talked about was the weather. Was I lying to you? No. It's like, bro, the weather is kind of smoky over here because of the Canada fires, right? Like, am I lying to you? No. You just don't know everything about me. So real quick question. How often are you listening to music in your own home studio? Think about it for a second. Are you sitting down and actually opening up Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you use, and are you jamming out in your studio? Again, your room could be lying to you. Acoustic treatment helps. All this stuff helps. But what helps the most is just knowing what your room sounds like. You need to get to know it better. Let it talk to you. Let it tell you all of the stories, all of the stories about it, about its life. I was talking with Chris Baseford, and he was saying that he had this like weird little like issue that was going on in his room. His room was like cutting. I think it was cutting 100 hertz in his room, and he ended up turning the crossover on his speakers off. So like from his speakers to his sub, and it ended up creating like an artificial 100 hertz boost, and it fixed the issue in his room. He knew his room well enough because he was listening to reference tracks. He's like pulling up mixes and he's like listening to the stuff. He knows what his room sounds like. So get used to what your room sounds like. The thing is, you know what your car sounds like because you listen to music every day on the way to work and every day on the way home, on the weekends when you're going some places. When you pull out your headphones and you're mowing the lawn or whatever you're doing, you know what your headphones sound like. You're listening to music on these other devices way more than you're listening to it on your own home speakers. You don't know what your studio sounds like. Therefore, if it sounds good in your room and it sounds bad everywhere else, the thing is the mix didn't magically change. Like it didn't just pick up legs, walk across your DAW and go and change the mix when it rendered out. That didn't happen. So if you're dealing with the same audio file, can you tell that I'm getting a little passionate about this? I get super passionate about this. I love this. But if it's the same audio file and it sounds different in your studio to the car, the audio file didn't change. So what changed? The only common denominator is your own home studio. So get to know what it sounds like. If you can't put up acoustic treatment, that helps a ton. Sound ID reference, that software is like that. That can help. But just above all else, just get to know what they sound like. Zach Cervini, who's mixed for Poppy and Architects and like a lot of popular, rock and metal bands. He does a lot of his mixes on a pair of Apple AirPods. I'll say that again. This guy does his mixes on Apple AirPods. He'll check on his multi-$1,000 barefoot monitors and then do the majority of his mixes on Apple AirPods. Why do you think that is? He's like, consumers are listening to this, so I want to make sure it sounds great here. And people love his mixes. They love it. They love it in the studio. They love it in the car. They love it in the Apple AirPods. He knows what those sound like. He's listening to music on them all the time. If you go to the gym and you have those headphones. So for heaven's sakes, try this. I want you to try this. If you're struggling with translation so much, again, translation from one room to the next, it feels like it's different. Grab your favorite pair of earbuds. I like these JBL ones. They're like $40, $50, $60 or something like that at Walmart. You can pick them up pretty cheap. And they're one of the most common earbuds. I also have a pair of Apple AirPods as well. And so if you have those, try mixing on these. Just pull them out and try mixing on these. If your computer supports Bluetooth, awesome. If it doesn't, you can get a little Bluetooth adapter that goes into your interface. And just try it. Just try mixing on your AirPods and on your earbuds, and you'd be surprised at the quality of the mix that you get from these things. You're like, but I spent $500 on my headphones, Andrew. But I spent so much money on my headphones. It's like you don't know what your headphones sound like. You don't. You don't know what your studio sounds like. You're not sitting down listening to music nearly enough. The only time you get into your studio is when you're making your own music. That's the only time you're listening to music. So how in the world are you supposed to get something that sounds good in all places? That is the main issue. That is the main reason that mixed translation doesn't happen from the studio to the car. You don't know what it sounds like, right? People are going to be like, oh, you need to go to your master bus and you need to load an EQ on your master bus and you need to roll off some of the low. They're going to tell you all this stuff, but all that stuff means absolutely nothing. I've been on YouTube for a long time. I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I did a lot of my learning back in the day on YouTube, right? When it was just like two guys doing this. It was like crazy. And you're going to see a lot of that on YouTube, and I just want you to ignore that information. Like when someone's like, it sounds bad in the car, but it sounds great in your studio, do this mixing trick. It's like, no, nothing magically happened from your studio to the car. The WAV file is the WAV file. The MP3 is the MP3. It didn't magically change. It didn't grow legs and walk across your DAW and start pressing buttons when it was rendering out. Like, learn what your studio sounds like. All right, that was a long rant. It was a long rant. But I will not apologize for it. Michael says, my bathroom tells me the truth. I love it. I love it. Another shameless plug. I have to talk about it because I'm really excited about it. The 3-day challenge starts tomorrow. 3-day mixing challenge starts tomorrow. If you want the stems from a real client mix that I actually did, they're allowing you to use it in your portfolio. Over the course of 3 days, we're going to mix it from start to finish. We're doing it live inside of the community. You're going to get a community of other people as well. And on day 3, we're actually going to, I'm going to be listening to every single one of your mixes. Every single one. Every person that joins. Because of that, there are limited seats. And I'm assuming that all the seats will be taken by the time we're off right now on the, we're not off right now, but by the time the live stream is over, I'm assuming all the spots will be taken. So I just want to point that out there. If you want to walk away with a real mix, a radio ready finished mix, I'm going to be mixing it in real time with you. I'm going to be giving you actual access to feedback in here as well. Feedback is extremely important. I want to help you through this, and I want you guys to also have a great song that you can throw into your portfolio. That's the one thing that I don't know if I can guarantee in the future. And so that's, I just don't know if I'll be able to guarantee that in the future. This band was super awesome to allow me to do this, and this is something that most bands are just not cool with. They're like, hey, everybody can have my stems and then go throw it in their portfolio. Like, that seems a little, it's like, yeah. And so they were super cool to allow me to do that. I don't know if I'll be able to get a chance to do this again in the future, so I can't make any promises. But again, all spots will probably be filled by the time we're off this call, I'd assume. And so if you are interested, links to that are in the chat and also in the description as well. You can go there, click on that, save your seat, and you'll get a bunch of emails tomorrow when we go live. You get access to a private community with no ads. It's not a Facebook community or anything like that. It's a private community on my website. There's no ads or anything like that. I think you guys will really enjoy it. I'm excited about it, which is why I'm talking about it so much tonight. Okay. Whew. This is some great stuff. Okay. Brennan Moss, 7772, my guy. It's good to see you here, man. Good to see you here. Hey, Andrew, what do you think about saying 80% of your sound comes from 20% of your effort? Absolutely. Do you guys know the 80-20 rule? It's commonly known as the 80-20 rule, but really it's called the Pareto principle. And Pareto's principle is this guy here. Where's it at here? Yeah, this guy here, Joseph Juran. Again, he come up with this idea that, or I think it was actually Pareto's distribution. I just want to make sure Pareto. I think the guy's name was actually Pareto. It doesn't matter nearly as much as the concept. We also know it was called the 80-20 rule, or the law of the vital few. What happened was this guy was there it is. This guy. Wilfredo Pareto. I'm not saying that right, but you get the point. He had came up with the idea that as he was going through his bean fields, he was gardening, and he was going through his beans, and he realized that 80% of the beans were coming from 20% of the plants, and he thought that was super interesting. So he's like, what's going on here? And so he went a little bit further into this and realized that 80% of the land was in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. He's like, oh, this is interesting. And he realized that 80% of the wealth was owned by about 20% of the people. And then he realized that like 80% of the work that actually got done in a business was typically done by 20% of the employees. You probably know this. If you're an employee of a company, you're probably like, my guy, like I am the 80%. I know I was, or at least I felt like I was. And when I quit, they freaked out. They're like, what can we do for you to stay? And I was like, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I am making music all day long, every day. I will take a massive pay cut for this instead of staying here. It was funny. I feel bad about how I left because I kind of left with a middle finger. I didn't do it. I didn't flip them off, but I kind of left. It was like, you guys will figure it out yourself. And I just dipped. Like not even a 2 weeks notice or anything like that. I kind of feel a little bit bad about it now, but it is what it is. But good old days, right? But anyway, you probably realize that you see this all the time. 80% of the effort comes from 20% of the work that you actually do, right? So when you are actually doing, applying the 80-20 principle inside of making music, you need to understand that 80% of what you do is only giving you 20% of the results. Now, here's the thing. 80% of what you're doing right now is probably mixing. You're probably dialing EQs and dialing compressors and everything else, and that's 80% of your time in the studio, and it's only giving you maybe 20% of the results. It can be even more skewed than that. It could be like 90-10. A lot of, into your question here, Brandon, 80% of your sound comes from 20% of your effort. The effort is actually the sound choice. A lot of it boils down to that, which is these drums specifically. Like if we listen to these drums, I love how they sound. I like them a lot, and that snare just pops. You hear that ring in that snare? It's actually like pretty aggressive. I loved it. Like for this mix, it worked really well. I don't use the snare very often. Let me turn off the snare sample that I have for that width. Super fat, but it's got that like ring to it. I really loved that. Again, and then I used one snare sample on top of it as well. And that was it. And it sounds like this. So 80% of the sound came from really actually two decisions. One decision was the first snare that I used, and then the second decision was the snare sample that I laid on top of it. I can't even talk. The snare sample that I layered on top. And so again, most of that came from that. And then I'm going ahead and I'm adding a little bit of R bass here, and then I'm adding a little bit of compression, and that was everything that I did to that snare. Let me hit that one more time. A little bit of R bass, a little bit of compression, and that was the only thing that I did to that snare. The only thing. Mixing, a lot of mixing boils down to making sure that you're actually making the moves that matter. I don't even have EQ on the snare. Crazy. Crazy. All right. So when it comes to that, I would say the 20% of effort is the sound choice that you're using and the song that you're writing. If you write a great song, I saw this post from this guy on Instagram today. I wish I could remember his name, but he said he was in his car and he's like eating a popsicle. And he's like, when you write a song, he goes, when you write a song, imagine a kid in the school bus, like on his way to school, listening to your song in the car or in the bus. And he's imagining himself performing that on stage. and like the crowd goes wild for his whole class. His whole class goes wild, and the girl that he really likes is like just she's like so impressed by him, and she wants to date him after this. Like, can your song do that? If not, mixing's not gonna fix that, dog. I don't know what to tell you. You know, like we all had that moment, right? We're like in high school where you're like, I could perform this for the talent show, and she's gonna love me. Like, Oh, I think whatever that is for you. We all had that. We all had that moment. It was fun. It was fun. But anyway, if your song doesn't do that, again, like if you can write a great song, you can almost botch the mix and still be all right in a lot of cases. But again, like mixing doesn't matter because then people need to perceive you as high quality. So mixing does matter to a certain extent, right? Like I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying it's like a car where if you have, actually, this is a great analogy to bring this in right here. So we have, imagine we have a car, right? So I'm going to draw the world's worst looking car. I'm a master artiste on Microsoft Paint, right? Yoink. Look at that. Or it looks more like a bus. But we have the engine. And we have the wheels. We also have the transmission. It's got to come back over here, right? So this car is built out of a lot of different things, right? Your song is built out of a lot of different things, right? You have the writing, you have the production, you have the mixing, the mastering. The mixing is the wheels. Or actually, I would say the tires. Now, the wheels and tires are like 20% of the car, right? But would you say that the wheels and tires are important? Yeah. Like you're not gonna get far without them, right? But they're only 20% of the car, right? So if I have a car that's sitting in my driveway that's broken down, and if some tire salesman comes up to me and says, "I got the best tires, and it'll make this car run just fine," and I'm like, "Dog, like the engine is blown," That's like a great mix on a trashy song is like putting really nice tires on a broken down car. And that's just the way that it is. Every piece needs to be good, right? But if you have a really awesome car, and the tires are like falling right off of it, people are still gonna like the car. They're like, man, it would be really nice to put tires on this and drive it down the road. Like this, like my favorite car of all time. If I would love to afford this thing. It's just not gonna happen. But it is a 1969 Mustang Boss. 429. I want this car so bad. This thing is phenomenal. If I ever see this car in real life, I'm taking photos next to it, even if the tires are worn right off of it. All right, that's what a good song should do. A good song should be like this car is to me, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love this. It's so awesome. It's so good. And then if there's tires on it and actually runs down the road, like I'm gonna lose my absolute marbles. Dude, it's got the 429 in it, which was like a V8 again, 7-liter V8. This thing probably got like -8 miles to the gallon. It was ridiculous. Just get the point. Like the thing just absolutely ripped. I wonder if there's any videos online of this. Yeah, with an almost $1 million sale on this thing. No, I don't want to sign into Facebook. Are you Meta? Just let me watch the freaking video without signing in. Dude, ridiculous. All right, anyway, you get the point. Wheels and tires. They matter a lot. But they don't matter nearly as much as everything else is in the car. Hopefully this makes sense. Let me hit some more questions in the chat here. Matt Knorr says, so I got a funny question for you because I'm curious. When you're looking for drum VSTs, what are your main concerns and deal breakers for you? Anything it absolutely needs for what you want? Great question. When I am picking drum tones, typically, again, I'm going off of my reference, but we talked about the Saint Anger snare earlier, the snare from Knocked Loose, which sounds like somebody punching a metal chair. But then we can also talk about the snare from like I Prevail, which is a lot more low tuned and fat, right? And so when I'm looking for a set of drums, I want to make sure that I'm kind of matching the vibes that I'm going for. Am I going for a more Thal like sound? Am I going for a more gent like sound like Periphery? What are the sounds that I'm going for here? This snare I don't really use a whole lot, but I do love it. It's from Fairview Drums. And it's just got that ring to it that I really like, and I just like it a lot. But it's a very like higher tuned, ringy snare, and because of that, I don't really use it in a lot of mixes. But it does sound cool. I do like it. I love this. I love that cymbal. Anyway, So I'm choosing drum tones that are going for the vibes I'm going for. Again, have a reference track. If you don't have a reference track, like you're just not gonna know where to go. So that's what I do. I'm using a lot of different drum tones, but specifically, again, like I'm going to use a lot of Giga drums. Anything from RS drums is really good as well. I use Drum Forge a lot. I just want to have an arsenal of drum tones, so when a band comes to me, they're like, "What do you want?" You know, me personally though, I do like Giga drums, the downbeat, and Giga drums, the new metal. So anything that I do for myself, I typically use those. That's my personal taste, but like if there was like one drum tone that was like perfect, then Giga drums would have one drum library, and that would be the only thing they sold, and they would be like wildly successful with just that. But that's not the point. People like different types of drum tones. Yeah, I want to try Fairview after owning Prague Prodigy. That one is great. Yeah, Michael, Prague Prodigy is awesome. It's awesome. Brennan says the wheels create the movement and groove, if you will. Yeah, I like that. The song should already have movement, in my opinion, but the mixer gives it that extra sauce. I completely agree. Mixing does matter. It's just like saying wheels on a car doesn't matter. If you say mixing doesn't matter, then wheels of a car doesn't matter. Like you're not going to get down the road. But it's not the only thing that matters, but it's one of the bigger things that matters. So again, I have my challenge that's starting tomorrow. If you're seeing this after tomorrow, my apologies. You know, it's over. But you get to download the stems of the exact song that I'm working on. Lots of great stuff. I'm really excited about it, so I'm just going to keep talking about it all night. There's a lot of really good stuff. Links to that are in the pinned comment here, inside of the chat, and also in the description below this video. You can click, you can join. If you click on it and you see a page that allows you to join, then it's still up. There's still availability. But if it is closed, it will say sold out. I'm sorry, it's sold out. If you go to join, and it says sold out, then it's sold out, and I'm sorry about that. I am doing on Saturday. I'm doing a full mix review for everybody, and because of that, I have to limit the spots. Like I guarantee a review from every single person, and that takes time. It's just, it is what it is. I don't have 107 hours in a day, and if I'm listening to each mix, which is roughly like 3.5 minutes long, like I can only listen to a certain amount of mixes. So again, I have it capped. So I'll probably be full by the end of this live stream. So go ahead, click the link in the description. You can join. Okay, let me get into some more questions here. Do you ever export the MIDI drums to audio tracks just to future-proof your sessions? Sweet Chuck, that is a fantastic. I love that handle, by the way. That is a fantastic question. I do that every time. Like every time when I'm done with the mix, I do. I used to do that every time, no matter what, because my computer would slog. Like modern day computers, like if you're running an M series Mac, like I have a laptop. I don't have it here, but I have a laptop that is a 2020 or 2021 M1 Max, and that thing rips. Like I have no issues with it at all. I love the thing. I had an old Intel Mac that was really kind of like scrambling a little bit. Modern computers can do this stuff really well. Like the technology has gotten really fast, so you're fine. So anymore, like with this computer that I built this computer. Well, I bought the pieces and I put it together. I was always funny when someone's like, I built a computer. It's like I didn't find the sand and like make my own CPU, but you get the point. And it's fine. And so then again, like all of these, they're not audio files. But if I actually go to the project folder of this song specifically, let me show you. So this is how I future-proof my stuff. So let me go to my project folder. Again, I can't show my screen right now because I have work that I've done that's like under NDA and I cannot share that. But if I come here, okay, here. So here is how I do this. So again, I have the album cover, which ended up going live, the actual song project, and then I have the mix downs. So all mix downs. I ended up doing 3 revisions for this. I had the initial, it was actually 3 revisions. So I did the initial one, and then I did 2, which was the mix. This one was the mix and master, and then I have an unmastered and a final master. I sent an unmastered version to a mastering engineer, and then I also mastered a version of it myself. What went live on Spotify was my mastered version. I preferred it with a blind test, and so I just went with it. But anyway, so again, like it was like actually 2 revisions, because again, like once I got the song done, it was there. So then if I come back over here, I can come over here to the stems. I have the final master file that's here, and then I have all the different stems that are in here as well. And then I also have like a zip folder of everything, right? Like, so if we extract this real quick, and extract it in the same spot, it's gonna, it's gonna be like there's a lot. So we have all the different stems that are here and here. So I can always drag it back in and future-proof myself in the future. So I have everything that I have there. So again, I do recommend doing that, because if you open a session 7 years from now and the company that you loved so much went out of business and you can't download the update to their new stuff and it's broken on the new version of Logic or whatever you're running, that's heartbreaking. And so move stuff to audio. Move stuff to audio. So I do recommend doing that. Do you mix separate VSTs to get good shells with ones and good cymbals with another? Yeah, I do. That's one really exciting thing that I'm excited about for the new update of Get Good Drums, their sampler. It's been the one biggest complaint, was not being able to mix and match kits. For this song here, I didn't. I used the cymbals that were with it. But a lot of times I'm looking for maybe more shimmery cymbals and a fatter sounding set of drums. These are nice, but they're like a more mid-range heavy cymbal. Like, listen to the mid-range on this, right? There's like some shimmer, but there's a lot of mid-range. But like something like from Matt Halpern's kits, like from the Periphery and stuff like that, they got a nice overall kind of like shimmer to them. And so I kind of like that stuff. So again, yeah, blending them can be really nice. But then when you blend them, like, don't blend them for each song. Like, find a kit that you like, save it. So, which is why I'm really excited about the new update. So instead of having like two MIDI instruments, I can just have one, and then it makes my life a lot easier. Great questions, man. You guys are letting them rip. Michael, also sometimes Trigger 2 can't handle MIDI that well on some drum VSTs, I noticed. Trigger 2 is kind of buggy for me sometimes. I noticed that. I've been using a lot of Waves in Trigger. Waves, I don't like... There's some stuff about Waves I'm not a big fan of. Like, I'll buy this plugin, and then like 2 years from now, there's going to be an update that comes out, and then I have to pay for the update. That's super frustrating. But the plugins are cheaper to get into, so it's just frustrating. Like, I hate having to shell out more money for something that I already bought. But nevertheless, Waves in Trigger seems to be a lot more stable for me. And then also, I can just drag and drop the wave file right here. I don't have to. I can load in my own wave files without having to open up Trigger 2. Because like, if you have Trigger 2 here, they really should make Trigger 3 at this point in time, where you can just drag and drop the wave files right here. But like, you have to, like, you go to the browser, and then you have to go through here. And then when you want to add your own in, you have to like drag in your own samples through their instrument editor. And then you have to refresh this. It's kind of a nightmare. But again, like, you have to adjust the sensitivity, the retrigger, the detail, and everything like that. And so I've just found that in Trigger seems to be a little bit more stable for me. And so I just use it a lot more. It's just easier and more convenient for me to like go in and switch different samples back and forth from any library that I have, without having to go into the instrument and like load it manually. So that's what I do. Great question. Matt Norris says, I really want to check out GGD eventually. Yeah, they get some good stuff. Also been eyeing the Lorna Shore drums from Mixwave. Mixwave also has some really good stuff as well. When you're choosing drum samples, just make sure, like, is this the drum sample that you want? Like, does it sound the way you want it to sound? Are you making music that sounds in this, that's in that vein? If not, then just ignore it for now. Just don't worry about it. When would you use Trigger 2 versus in Trigger? I've been using in Trigger almost exclusively now. Trigger 2, if I'm looking for the samples that are specifically in Trigger 2, that like I bought like expansion packs and some other stuff. So if I'm looking for those samples, I'll use Trigger 2. Other than that, I'm pretty much using in Trigger now. So yeah. Yeah. Great question. Great question. All right. So let's keep going on the questions here. Hang on. I might have to refresh my camera real quick. We've been streaming for a long time, so I need to make sure that's working. Okay. I got a new camera that should last this long, but I always get nervous because my old camera would die in like 45 minutes, and we've been streaming for 2 hours now. So, so yeah. I want to make sure that's still going to last and it's not going to die on me. Okay. Yeah, Trigger 2 does have a massive library, and their drum samples are really, really good because they're made by Steven Slate. A lot of them are made by Steven Slate, and he's like the drum guy. He's good at what he does. A lot of you guys, does anybody remember when Steven Slate would put out those CDs? Does anybody remember that? He would you'd literally get a CD in the mail, and then there's like some either paperwork or something with it where it would also say like if you like each sample is coded specifically to you, and if we find that you like ripped these samples and gave to other people, we will find out. Like I remember that being like at the time being like, is that real? Like I don't think it was. Yeah, I got a dummy battery on the way, DJ. Yeah, I have a dummy battery on the way that should solve the issue. But yeah, my old camera, the issue was it would die in 30 to 45 minutes, but it actually died because of overheating. And so I tried the fan thing, but it just like it couldn't handle it. It really wasn't meant for that. Yeah, did it come with AOL? Yeah, you get a CD and you'd also get like, you know, AOL with it as well. Yeah. Michael, use Trigger 2 if you want multi-samples. If you don't care, then get N-Trigger. N-Trigger also runs multi-samples now. So again, I love both. I have both in the session right now. Like I have Trigger 2 sitting here and I also have N-Trigger here, but you can run multiple different samples and blend them together. One thing here is you can flip the phase, which is nice too, like you could in Trigger 2 by flipping the phase here. So if you feel like blending some of the samples together aren't doing it, it's there. So there is some stuff you can also add a delay in, which is kind of nice. So you can like delay when the sample hits. I believe that's in by like milliseconds, if I'm not mistaken. I think. But anyway, yeah, you can literally just drag and drop a sample in here, which is actually pretty cool. So yeah, I'm having a good time with it. I don't know, literally. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and actually disable these. So good thing I'm not saving the session. But anyway. They both work great. It doesn't matter. Just pick one and go with it and just go all in. N-Trigger is a little bit cheaper than Trigger 2, but Trigger 2 is not going to ask you for a bunch more money in the future for the same thing you already bought. Software companies, guys. So anyway, it is what it is. It's the Waves thing. Matt Norris says, I'm very all over the place in terms of the sound I love. One day I want to create some heavy and ambient cinematic stuff, and the other day I want to create some heavy lo-fi infused stuff. Dude, you got to do it. You got to do it all. But I will say though, like get in the habit of finishing tracks and releasing them before you move on to the next like wave, right? Like if you're like, man, I'm really excited to move on to the next song, that you have to like, then you just have to finish the next one. Like that's the rules, guys. I don't make the rules. Actually, I made that rule, but you get the point. Try to finish the last one that you just did, right? Or otherwise, all that time that you spent wasn't really building any skills per se. Like you were building some skills, but you didn't really get the skill of finishing. And so finish the music before you move on to the next one. I made EDM exclusively for almost like 4 years. I used to make like sample packs. And like I think there's still some sample packs on my website from like years ago. Like for like trap music, and different stuff like that as well. So I just, yeah, it just is what it is. You have to keep up with that. So again, like follow the direction that you want to go with making music, but just try to get in the habit of actually finishing the songs you start. All right. Because that will develop more skills than you could even imagine. Right. You finish 3 songs that you've actually got out and you released on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever else. And you're like, man, this is actually like, I learned a lot. And then you move on to the next thing, which is like some more cinematic type stuff. Right. Like I'm actually working on a cinematic song. I wonder if I can pull this up for you guys right now. I'll go ahead and I'll pull it up. This band, the band that I am sharing the stems with tomorrow in the 3-day mix challenge, it's the same band that I am showing you this from as well. We have some string elements, some very cinematic stuff. So again, keep in mind, just want to put this out there. This is still a work in progress. We have scratch vocals on. There's a lot of reverb on the vocals. Like just keep that in mind. Like we just threw on some reverb. They are coming back and retracking some more stuff. They were supposed to be here tonight, and then they weren't able to come tonight. The singer was not able to show up. Something came up there, and he had to handle his own stuff. So I decided to do the live stream tonight. So again, they're awesome. Let me answer some more questions as I'm pulling up this version where there's a lot of cinematic stuff. Because again, I do believe that like you can have a core element. Like I am a guitar player at heart. I have a lot of guitar players. Like that's a photo of Jimi Hendrix back there, guys. Like back here, that's Jimi Hendrix. I am with a Stratocaster sitting right next to it. I am obsessed with playing guitar. I am a guitar player. I don't want to say a guitar player first anymore. I believe I'm a producer first these days. But I was a guitar player first. And so every single song that I've done for the last 12 years has pretty much had like some guitar element. Even like my EDM stuff, I'd have like, EDM type guitars in there as well. There's a lot of good stuff. And so when you branch out from these into these other genres, like always try to like see if you can pull something that's like, what is core to your sound, and pull that into those genres as well. Pat Norris says, I love your engagement with your audience, Andrew. It's an amazing trait. Well, dude, I appreciate that. It's nice to hang out with you guys. I should do more live streams, but I just don't. Unfortunately. I should do more live streams. I should. But sometimes like when you're dealing with a mix, like I can't live stream and mix all the time because like the band's like, don't show my music before it's made. This band has been amazing to work with, and this is still a work in progress, and they're allowing me to show this stuff. So like kudos to them. They got some good stuff. Let me show you the string elements of this. There's a lot of strings in this. So a lot of string elements as well. Also, Matt, still working on the program about from you. Really happy with it so far, dude. I'm glad. That makes me thrilled. That is the most important thing. I want to make sure that people actually enjoy the stuff that they get from me. It's one thing to waste someone's time, but it's another thing to waste someone's money. And if you ever buy a program and you feel like you wasted your money, you ended up wasting both. And that keeps me up at night. I'm like, I want to make sure that my students get the most they absolutely can out of it, which is why I keep updating these programs, and I keep adding new stuff, and I keep, updating things like I just had to re-update all of the stuff on how to actually release your music and like getting it out there, because Spotify changed their, Spotify for Artists changed, like stuff like that changed. And so I was like, oh crap, now I have to re-go do all of this. But again, like, it's important for me to do that because I want you guys to actually be able to see the same website I'm doing as I'm doing that stuff. So I'm glad you're getting a lot of value out of the program. For the rest of you guys, I do have a 3 mix challenge coming up. That's tomorrow. I'm super excited about it. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Links to that are in the description. All right. Let's go into the strings on this though, because again, the last one had a lot of hip hop fused stuff. So I like blending genres with metal. It's one of my favorite things about metal. But check out like the different strings elements that I have here. And if you're like, man, that sounds super distorted. Yes, it does. It's in a rock and metal song. Like, it needs to sound distorted. So I have saturation on this. But there's some really cool stuff here. Like, so yeah, there's a lot of like cinematic elements. But then like, so you have this breakdown, this massive breakdown. So let's go ahead here with the guitars. So then you have this like big breakdown. But then you add cinematic to it. It's just so cool. I love blending genres together. So I know that I went for a long time on this specific question, but when you want to make different styles of music, just go for it, guys. Like, just go for it. It's fine. Make different styles of music, but find out what is core to you. If you're watching my channel, you're enjoying a lot of my music, then that is probably rock and metal. Like, you're probably a rock and metal guy or gal for the 2% or 3% of my audience that is female. Glad you're here as well. But it's probably rock and metal, and you want to be able to blend like cinematic with stuff and hip hop with stuff. And you just heard like the last track that I had open was all hip hop kind of like elements with like fall. And this is more cinematic and melodic, right? And so it's nice to be able to go through all different types of genres, but just find out what your core is and finish the last song you did. Finish the last one, move on to the next one. Your sound will change over time. Think about Bring Me the Horizon and how often their sound has changed, right? It's totally fine to do that. Just make sure that you finish the last song. Just like they finished the last album that you loved so much, do the same thing for yourself. Like, treat music with the same amount of respect that it deserves. It is an extension of you, so treat it with that respect. When you go to work, oh man, I'm gonna rant here. I'm gonna rant here, guys. Rant alert. I need a sound for rant alert. Should I do like party horn? Rant alert. uh, dial up. I need a sound for a rant alert, like a something. Anyway, you get the point. When you go to work and you're working for somebody else, they are setting goals for you. They are saying you need this deliverable to me by this day. If you are, I don't care what you're doing. I'll use an example. I used to do construction work, so I would be like framing out walls. I would frame out a wall, and then I would, fill it with insulation. The electrician would come through and run all the lines, and then I'd fill it with insulation, and I'd put the drywall up, and then and then the mudder would come through and do some of that. I did some of that as well. There's a lot of stuff that went down. By the end of the week, I was expected to have 4 walls built, and then I would come home. And then I would want to work on music. And guess what I didn't do? I didn't put an expectation on the fact that I was supposed to finish music by a certain time. So guess what happened? I didn't finish music. I didn't, right? Other people were setting goals for me that I hit. But I didn't want to set a goal for myself because I didn't want to put music in some sort of box, like a checkbox, like because I felt like that was just like dehumanizing it. But it's not. It's just treating it with respect. Okay, let me put it this way. If I tell my friend I'm going to meet them at the movie theaters at 8 p.m., if I don't meet them at 8 p.m. and I just ghost them, is that respectful? No, it's not. Did I put it in my calendar and check off a box and then show up? Yes. Was treating my friend with respect? Yes. By putting it in a calendar, checking off the box that I went there. Like, again, we need to treat music with the same amount of respect that other people are expecting us to treat them with respect. Do you care about music? Do you care about your friend? Do you care about keeping your job? Well, if you care about music, and I know that you do. Like I had, again, 600 calls, 600 with students over the last 8 to 9 months. And everyone tells me that music is the most important thing in their life. It's one of the most important things. Like they have a family, they have kids or whatever else, and then it's music. If you treat music with the same amount of respect, then why aren't you actually treating it with the same amount of respect, putting a deadline on your songs and getting those things out there? Treat it with respect. That was like a light switch moment that went off for me. I remember being like, I would drag the trash to the curb. It's Wednesday night right now. Thursday mornings is when the garbage company comes around. And I would drag the trash to the curb on a Wednesday night. And I would like look up at the sky and I would be like, if I could just make music my full-time thing. That's what I want to do. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying you have to. You want to make great music. That's why you're here. That's why you're still watching this. But I would drag the trash to the curb and I'd be like, if I could just make music my full-time thing, I just want to so bad. I knew that I had to get up early in the next morning. I had to be at work at 6 a.m. And I was like, I just hate it. I hated that feeling. And it wasn't until one day when my mentor was like, why aren't you treating music with the same amount of respect that you're treating your job? You're showing up there on time. You have these deliverables that need to be done by a certain time. Why aren't you doing the same thing for your music? And I was like, oh man, that kind of hurts. Like, it's kind of painful. It's like, I don't want to put music in a box. I don't want to put it on a calendar. It's like, yeah, but if you respect your friend, you respect the job that you have, then that's what happens. It's like, don't be disrespectful to your music, guys. Don't. Being on time shows that you respect other people's time. Preach. Exactly. If you're late, you're just showing that like you care more about your time than you do somebody else's, which again, things happen. It's a nuanced topic, but overall, yes. Sometimes things come out of the way, but again, like I'm going to make a phone call and be like, yeah, I'm late, guys. So, yeah, you get the point. Hey man, joined late. Murdworks. Dude. I think you're the one that had the question earlier today. I think so. But anyway, hey man, joined late, but want to get back to the beginning of Sawis. At about 30 minutes in, you spoke about online distortion and paying attention to attack transients. Thanks, dude. Yes, absolutely. Yep, man. Of course, man. That's what I'm here for. I want to answer people's questions. How are you able to come up with so many analogies on the spot? There's a thing called andragogy. If you guys don't know what this is, andragogy definition. It is the method and practice of teaching adult learners, focusing on self-direction, prior life experience, practical problem-solving approaches. There's basically 6 principles to andragogy. And one of the principles to andragogy is readiness to learn. like orientation in learning. So again, that readiness to learn means adults. Again, it's one thing for me to understand mixing and mastering. It's another thing for me to be able to pass that skill on to you. And so understanding how to pass a skill on to somebody else is helpful. One of the greatest ways of doing this, if you ever teach, like if you're teaching guitar lessons or anything, or like trying to teach somebody else music production, using analogies is very helpful. The more you understand the topic, though, the more you can come up with analogies off the cuff, because you understand the topic very well at a very deep level. And so you can be like, oh yeah, it's a lot like this, or yeah, it's a lot like this, right? So what you do is you tie something somebody doesn't know into something that they do know, and you tie it together, and you're like, this is actually a lot like this. Boom. And it can help like transfer a skill to somebody else, because then they're like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. So analogies are helpful when it comes to teaching other people. But I also like to talk in analogies quite a lot as well. But anyway, androgogy, it's interesting. It's the study of teaching other people. And it's a skill of transferring skill to somebody else. It's interesting. But anyway, that was one important thing. Like I've been producing for well over a decade. But when I started the YouTube channel, and then people were coming to me and being like, how can you teach me? I was like, I need to make sure that I can do this well. Right? Like we've all had those teachers. We've all had those YouTube videos where they're like, hey man, just throw a compressor on and then crank the knobs until it sounds good. You're like, I'm taking my sub back. I'm just I'm taking it back to give it back to me, you know? And so I want to make sure that like the content that I actually make is applicable for you, right? Like you actually know what to do. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense, man. Yeah, to this audience, you are basically far more advanced and complex human Google. I love it. All right. We still have more questions to get through. Let me see if the mixing challenge still has seats available. Awesome. Okay, it looks like we still have okay, cool. We still have a couple seats available right now if you guys do want to join the mixing challenge. The 3-day mixing challenge, it starts tomorrow. There will be recordings available, so you guys can catch up on all of that. But you get to mix a real song in 3 days with me, and you get to keep it in your portfolio. You get to walk away with a portfolio piece and a system that finishes songs even on your worst nights. This is super helpful. Again, links to that are in the description. They're also in the chat as well. Go ahead and click on over that if you want to do this with me as well. And on day 3 on Saturday, I'm going to be doing a mix and master review. So I'm going to be listening to your guys' versions of it and help you tweak that and get that out there so you can actually add something to your own portfolio. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get to do this again because the band was super cool with allowing me to share the stuff and for you guys to use it in your portfolio. I just want to point that out there. I don't know if I'll ever be. I'm sure I'll probably at some point in time be able to get to do that again, but it's no guarantee because I'm dealing with other people in other bands, right? It's like that's how it is. Links to that are in the description. If you want more of this, I'm going to be going live every single day. If you've enjoyed this so far, then you're really going to like tomorrow. And I try to keep it as one of the most affordable things that I do. Okay, let me get on to some more questions. Order of operations. Okay. This is the next thing. What order do I do the last 10% in? Like, what's the sequence? A lot of people were saying is, and again, dude, even you, earlier in the chat, you were talking about, what hat should I wear? And we talked about that earlier. So, what order should we do things in, right? It's the sequence, right? And so, I kind of like to think of music as more of a pipeline. Here comes my analogies again. But imagine you have a pipe of water. I used to think of it like a ladder. I don't anymore. I take back that analogy. And I like to think of it as water, right? So imagine this is a pipe, right? And we have water flowing in and flowing out, right? Now imagine we have different valves that are here in the pipe, right? Right. So if you've written a song, but you haven't recorded it. So let's say, actually, let me make these different colors here. Let's say, boom, there's that one. And then we have red over here. And then we'll have blue over here. And we'll have purple over here. All right. So imagine you've written a song, but you haven't recorded it. Well, that just got shut off. That valve is now shut off. So the water is not going to flow out to the other end, which means your song is not actually going to get out there. Right. And so we want to make sure that each valve is opened. So the first valve is you have to write a song, right? That's putting water into the pipe. The next step of that is you actually need to record it, right? So let's go record it. The next part is the next valve in this pipe is then you actually need to produce it. So then we're going to come over here and we're going to say prod for producing, right? Producing meaning you're adding different layers, you're going vertical with it. So left to right, like I talked about earlier, in that left to right analogy I was talking about here, but basically you want to make sure that you get from intro to outro as quickly as you possibly can. Like it should take you 3-4 tracks max. Like get some drums in, get some guitars in, get some bass in and some vocals, and just get from left to right as quickly as possible. Maybe you have some synths or whatever like that that's core to the song, but then just try to get as quickly as possible from the left to the right. Then we start producing vertically. We're adding different layers, right? Like I have, like a couple different, like on here on this drum machine here. That like that was a kind of like a more production layer where like I get its performance, but I started adding that in later. I had a very basic, it was a lot like this. And we got from left to the right as quickly as we possibly could. And then we're like, we need some more movement in these drums. And so I added some more of that, right? And so that's production, right? All those different layers of production, right? Next is we have the mixing, right? So if this valve is shut off, water's not going to get out. Sorry, let me get this up so you guys can see this. So if this valve is shut off, then water's not going to get out to the other side, right? So you kind of get the point here. So you need to make sure that water goes from like passes through. So recording, production, mixing, and then finally is mastering, right? And then the song can actually get out. So when you think of, like, again, in order, and the reason why I don't think of it like a ladder, because a ladder, if you miss a step, you don't get to go to the next one. But water kind of flows, right? There's some splashback and things that happens with water, which is why I like this analogy a bit better. But sometimes you get into the production phase and you're like, oh, actually, I need to re-record some more guitars. So then you kind of like come back to re-record some guitars, and then you're back in here, and then you feel pretty good about it. Then you get into the mix and you realize, oh man, these drum tones are not what I expected them to be. So you kind of go back to the production side, change some different drum tones, and then you come back to the mix and your mix is a lot happier. Sometimes you go to the mastering phase and you're like, it's not hitting as much as I wanted to, and I feel like it's because the bass tone that I used or whatever else. And so then you can kind of come back to the mix, or you can kind of come back to the production, make a tweak, and then come back to the mastering state of it and know where you're at. So when it comes to this, like what order do I do this in? What's the sequence? Recording, production, mixing, and mastering, assuming that you have a song written, is the most important part, and try to do it in that order. Again, you can put on different hats for those moments, but then understand what you're doing. Like, it's not a mixing decision. This is actually a production decision. I need to go back to the production. And if you don't know, well, welcome to being a beginner or an intermediate producer. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Some of the best things that you can do is like get education from other people, get a mentor if you possibly can. Like try to figure out what the stuff actually is. So if you're confused, again, you can also just test things. You can also just try it. Like we're not dealing with tape anymore. Like you're not committed. So like you can just delete a track and then re-record a track and then be good to go. So you're fine. So just don't worry about it that much. And that's how I like to think of it. So when it comes to order of operations, like where do we actually go? I like to think of it this way. Okay. The next question that I typically get is, what belongs on my master bus? What should actually go on my master bus? There's two different things I want to talk about here. First is what is actually on my master bus for mastering, and what is on my master bus before it goes out to master. So let's just say we have song done. Song is done, right? If I'm just going to split this into two separate trees here. All right. And so let's say version 1 is we're actually trying to master this ourselves. And then let's say this version over here is someone else is going to master it, right? So we're just going to call this mix, right? So this is typically how I like to think about things. First is on my master bus. If I am mastering in the same session, I don't always recommend doing that for a beginner. Sometimes it's nice to just render everything out, go ahead and put it into a new bus, a new session and master it there. But if you look here over on my main, for here, I have a mix tool, which is just like I'm controlling gain on the way into my plugins. This is something that I learned from Andrew Sheps. He has different VCAs. VCA stands for variable controlled amplifiers. So basically, he can just like turn all the drums up, or turn all the drums down, or turn all the basses up, or turn all the basses down, or turn all the guitars up and turn them down. He can like change the structure quite often. I do this with a gain plugin directly on the front of my master bus here, so I can turn up the gain going into my compression, my clipping, my EQ, everything else, and then I also have it over here on my buses too. So like all of my buses, I have all my drums routed to a bus. I have all of my basses routed to a bus, all of my guitars, my rhythm guitars routed to a bus, so I can quickly change the gain structure going into my master bus. So the first thing that I do is I have a gain plugin. Every DAW has a gain plugin. In Reaper, it's called Volume Adjust. In Studio Pro here, it's called Mix Tool. In Logic, it's called just Gain. If you're like unsure, just Google it. It's really quick and easy to find what gain plugin is inside of your DAW. Every DAW has one. If you can't find one, then I don't know what DAW you're using. That's interesting. But there are other free plugins. There's one called Gain from Kilo Arts. It's free, and you can just like install it and be good to go. No matter what DAW you're using. So that's there. And then next is I want to make sure that I'm adding some limiting. So again, I like to mix through a limiter. So there is no master bus anything going on this mix right now. No compression, no nothing else. But I typically like to, on my master bus, if I am sending it out to a mastering engineer, so like I talked about earlier, let's talk about mastering it ourselves. So I want to add, typically I want to add some compression, some mix bus compression, and possibly, so I'll say comp, and then possibly some clipping. Possibly. Again, like I say, possibly. And then I want to make sure that everything else is left off. Maybe I have some EQ that's on, but hang on. Sorry, no. I mixed these up. Even the colors are mixed up. Sorry. If I'm sending out to a mix for somebody else, I'll have some compression, and then I'll have some clipping. Possibly. EQ or anything else, I'm just not that worried about. I kind of trust a mastering engineer on that if they need it. The mix should sound good enough already. And then I send it out the door and I make sure they have like at least like negative 3 dB of gain reduction. If it seems to peak a little bit more, I just make sure that I send them 32-bit float so I don't have to worry about it. If I'm mastering, then what I'll do is I'll make sure that I have my compression on. Typically, I love mix bus compression. I'll have clipping going on. Sometimes I have EQ going on. I love a good Pultec EQ on my master bus. I'll also go ahead and add some maybe multiband. So I'll just say MC for multiband compression if I feel like it needs it. And then finally a limiter out the door. And that's typically how I end up mastering my stuff. And my masters are very simple, very easy. I want to make sure that I get the majority out of it out of the mix. But you should be able to just grab a limiter like I have here on this mix, and it should sound good already. Like, again, this is still a work in progress, but it probably sounds like, it sounds pretty decent, right? Like, this may sound, again, this is not shade or anything, I'm not throwing shade, but this may sound with just a limiter, that's all that's on the master bus. It may sound better than a lot of stuff that you guys are dealing with right now. And I'm not throwing shade, I'm just saying, the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes people think that they can fix things in the master, but that's not the case. Like, things are sounding pretty decent here already. It's not perfect. And all I have on my master bus is a limiter, right? So I have a limiter, and then I have a gain plugin going into the front so I can adjust how hard it's hitting that limiter. And then as I go into the mastering side of things, then I'll go ahead and I'll master. So I like to mix through a limiter just to kind of keep the volume up a bit. And kind of keep it competitive so I can compare from mix to mix, like Spotify back to mine. So like I know that I'm kind of focused on the mix, and that's typically what I do. So that's typically what belongs on my master bus. What belongs on your master bus may be slightly different. That's why that last 10% can be so tough, which is like why we need to get people to listen to your stuff, which is why on Saturday I'm running the mix feedback. I'm literally reviewing your guys' mixes on Saturday. You're going to be mixing the same song alongside me, and I'm going to be reviewing your mixes so I can help you pass that. All right. So why does mixing eat up 90% of my project time? This is another question that I got. I have a timer that sits on my desk all the time. Which, by the way, we're going to have to get off here in like literally like another 15 minutes at max. So again, when I leave, we may already be full in the 3-day challenge already. If somebody wants to verify for that for me, that'd be great. But nevertheless, I have a timer that sits on my desk, and this timer, I can just like spin the knob, hit it, and then I can track. Or it allows me to track up, where if I like reset it and then touch once, it just keeps going up in time. It allows me to track time for each song. I know that I can finish the song in about 8 to 12 hours total. That's assuming that we at least have the idea started. Sometimes ideas can take 8 to 12 hours to come up with an idea. Sometimes not. Most of the time I can come up with an idea pretty quickly. If you guys are like, how do you come up with ideas? I recommend going through my channel and watching all of my SoundLick sessions. I open up a blank session, like there's nothing on the session, nothing. And I have a song that's pretty close to being done in about an hour to an hour and a half, right? So I know that I can do a complete finish in about 8 to 12 hours. Like that's talking mixing, mastering, all the revisions if necessary, any production work, that's including like the recording in a lot of cases. If I'm recording real drums, that takes a lot more time. Depending on how good somebody is, that can shift stuff. If you have a really good drummer, like you can press record and just let them crush it and then they're done, right? There was this mix from Bullet for My Valentine. I got a hold of the stems for that, and the snare would come out of tune towards the end of the song. And the mixing engineer from that was like, yeah, he was somebody who wants to, like, the drummer for Bullet for My Valentine is the kind of guy who wants to record everything from start to finish. Like, he doesn't want to do like punch-ins or anything else like that. He just wants to press record and then crush the whole song. He's a fantastic drummer. But because of that, the snare would come out of tune because he's hitting that snare so freaking hard. It would just come out of tune towards the end. And so they ended up using a sample to blend in with that to kind of make up for that that change in sound overall. So anyway, really cool stuff there. But I track the time. So right now, my mixes take me about 45 minutes to an hour and a half at most. Sometimes I have to kind of like push through and I spend a few hours on a mix, but most of the time it's not that case. It's not that way. 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So if mixing is eating up 90% of your project time, it usually just boils down to you wearing the wrong hat. Like you should be going back to the production side of things and fixing stuff in the production. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a snare that sounds like poo-poo and you're trying to make it sound not so poo-poo with mixing. But that's all you're going to get is a snare that sounds not so crappy at the end. So that's it. Hopefully that makes sense. How do I stop guessing? Which is another popular question that I get. That one specifically is just you got to do more, right? Like if you take a drive from like cross country, let's say United States, you're trying to drive from New York City all the way to Los Angeles, California. The first time you take the drive, you're going to be doing a lot of guessing. Like maybe you have a roadmap, so like you're not guessing so much, right? So like that can be helpful. That's a mentor for music, taking courses and things like that. They give you a roadmap. But the more you do it, the more you just quit guessing. You're like, you know where to go now. So to stop guessing, you just got to do it more and see if you can get a roadmap from somebody that is making music that you actually enjoy. Great questions. Okay, so I want to make sure that I had a couple other questions in the chat. I did not get all the questions. Like I said, I pulled 600 calls from the last 8 to 9 months, and it was a lot of questions. But they all boil down to the similar thing, which is like getting that last 10 to 15%, which is why I'm doing this live stream. Let me hit some questions in the chat as well. And another reminder, if there's spots available, if you click on the link, if there's spots available, I highly recommend joining the challenge tomorrow. I'm a bit biased. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to this. If you enjoyed this live stream so far, you're going to enjoy the challenge tomorrow. And it's one of the most affordable things that I do. I think you guys will really like it. Okay. And you get to use the stems and your mix that you make at the end of the week and the mix that I actually review with you guys. And you can use it in your portfolio. So you can like share that portfolio with people. There's some good stuff there. Okay. Michael, I struggle with thinking of new riffs and find myself in a loop of playing the same old ones while trying to create new ones. That is quite the problem. What it boils down to is I don't think you struggle with thinking of new riffs. I think you struggle with finishing an idea. And let me put this way. So if you're always coming up with something new, what it means is the skill that you currently have is coming up with something new. You get halfway through a riff and you come up with something different and you feel like the two riffs don't work together. And so then you start a new riff. So you're not actually coming up, like you're not struggling with coming up with new ideas per se. The real skill is finishing the riff idea, right? And actually like finishing it. The best thing that my guitar teacher ever told me when it comes to riffs and stuff is just learn other people's songs and just like play a couple of other people's songs, like really practice what they're doing. And then you start kind of like developing like, oh, there's kind of a structure here. And you start developing patterns that actually happens. And then you kind of know how to finish a riff. So I don't think that actually starting it is the problem. I think you get halfway through a riff and then you start a new one. You get halfway through that one, you start a new one. So what's actually happening is you think that you can't start a riff at all because you just keep noodling. But what actually is happening is the fact that you're starting like 7 different riffs and all 7 riffs don't belong in the same song. That's typically what I see. Again, without me hearing the stuff that you're making or actually seeing you do it in person, like here, at least here right now, is tough. But that's typically where that goes. So again, I just want to point that out there. Do you always, Murdworks, do you always apply your signal chain to an instrument Guitar bus is always a filter, then compress, and then saturation, and then special treatment. And is there a never this way? Meaning, do you always use the same order in layering that treatment? So that was another common question that I got. Let me scroll down, see if I can actually find it here. Where's it at? Where's it at? Order. I had it in order. Well, yeah. What sequence? Compressor or limiter? And EQ, which one should come first? That was a big question. So I'm assuming that's what you mean. Here's the cool part. If you go to your mixes, you'll start to realize that like if I was to flip the order of some of these, it might not make a sound, might not make a difference. So we start really stressing over like, am I putting it in the right order? But in a lot of cases, it actually doesn't make enough of a sound to worry about. Is it different? Yes. If you do a null test, you will hear a difference. Is it enough to worry about? No. Most of the time, no. Sometimes it is, and so we have to worry about that. I'll give you a great example. Right here inside of the oh, hang on. No, this is a different song, not the 808. But yeah, let me see if I can actually find the drums here. So let me go into the drums. Let me take a look at what I actually have here on the drums. And let's just listen to the snare specifically here. So I have R bass on the snare, and then I have a little bit of compression going on the snare. If I flip these, I know that R bass is adding some low end. That low end is now going to hit that compressor a little bit harder. I know it will sound different. How much will it sound different? Let's find out. So let me just go ahead and flip the order of R bass and the compression. So R bass was first, compression was second. Let's listen to the snare. Let me flip them now. Let me flip it again. Now, if you're telling yourself that you're hearing a difference, it's so minimal. Like, it's very minimal. There's a bit more low end with R bass last because it's compressing first, and then I'm enhancing a little bit of that low end with R bass. With it the other way around, that R bass is going into the compression, and that compression is slamming the mix down a little bit harder. So I feel like there's a little bit more low end with R bass last, but it is so minimal that by the time you get into a dense mix, you're not going to hear it. So what is the order of stuff that you should throw it in? It just doesn't matter. Like I throw stuff in order of problems I'm trying to solve, right? I'm never really going into a mix being like, oh, this needs EQ, this needs compression, this needs saturation, this needs some multiband compression. What should I do first? I'm just trying to solve one problem at a time, one foot in front of the other. I listen to the snare and I go, wow, this thing is really dynamic. I need to compress it a little bit. I got a compressor. And I go, there's a little bit too much low end. Let me go ahead and maybe grab the fundamental and attenuate that a little bit with an EQ. I feel like the transient is a little spiky. Let me instead of clipping, maybe grab a saturator and then go ahead and throw that in as well, right? So I'm solving one problem at a time. I'm not worried about the order of plugins. I'm just more worried about what problem am I solving right now with the one tool that I have in front of me. So again, a lot of times you can flip them and you'll notice a bit of a difference, but sometimes it's so minimal it doesn't even matter. So just start in order of the problem you're trying to solve, and your mixes will thank you for them. Yeah, use your ears. In other words, yes. I hate the term "use your ears" because that's the same. Like I was joking about just a little bit ago. I was just joking about the guys on YouTube that are like, what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab a compressor and you're just gonna turn these knobs until it sounds good. Now go make your mixes, guys. Trust your ears. Like everybody hates that guy. That's not helpful. You know what I mean? Like what if I told you, like again, the analogy of driving from New York City to Los Angeles, California. What if I was like, just get in your car and drive. Feel the vibes, man. You'll get there eventually. You're like, I'm never taking directions from you ever again. Right? But if somebody's like, yeah, trust your driving, make sure that you're actually paying attention to the road. Like that's super helpful information, but it's not everything, right? So when I say like trust your ears, I'm also saying like solve problems in order. What is your ear telling you the most important thing is? And if you don't know what it is, you're listening to your snare and you're like, I don't like it, but I don't know what it is. That's just a lack of information. That's a lack of knowledge. That's a lack of experience. And so just start doing more. Try EQ first. Does it fix the issue the way you want it to? No. Turn off that EQ. Go ahead and grab a compressor. Turn that on. Does that fix the issue that you were going for? Yes. Awesome. Now you know next time you come up against a snare that's having the same issue that you're hearing, you'll start to develop a pattern to know, okay, that was actually a compression issue, not a mixing issue, right? So then not an EQ issue. So that's the point. All right. Awesome. Fantastic questions. It all depends on the audio interface. Michael. I love it. I love it. I got sent an interface. I won't tell you guys what the company is, because I don't think I can. They sent me an interface, and they're like, I want you to try out this interface. It's like a very affordable, cheap interface. You can pick it up for like $40. They sent it to me, and it was objectively bad. It was very bad. Like, to the point where, like, I shot them a message back and was like, is it broken? Like, and they're like, no, like, this just has a darker sound to it. And I was like, okay, this is not darker. This is very bad, right? Now compare it, like, I do have a $600, $700 interface that's sitting on my desk right now. So, like, again, comparing a $40 interface to a $600, $700 interface, I get the point. Like, I get it. But, like, interfaces do matter to a certain extent. But only after a certain extent. Like, if you have a Focusrite, or something along those lines, like, as soon as you spend like $150 on an interface, you start to actually like get some pretty good stuff after that. So like, if you have like a Focusrite or anything that's applicable to a Focusrite, you're actually doing pretty good. Then any of the extra upgrades that you do put in the front of that, like the Apollo stuff, like upgrading from a Focusrite to an Apollo is not as much of a jump as I would like as I enjoy the jump, but it is not as much of a jump as most people would like to think. And the reason why the Apollo is more of a jump is because it has some DSP processing. You can change the different preamps that are in it, which does more than just change the saturation of the preamp, but you get the point. So there's a lot of stuff there. But again, interfaces do matter, but only after a certain extent. So if you're looking at your interface and it is an Amazon Basics something or other, like I don't even know if Amazon Basics makes an interface, but you get the point. You look at your interface and you're like, yeah, I think I got this thing for $7 on Temu. It might be time to upgrade. In fact, like, if you are working with a Temu interface that you picked up for like $7 and you want to join my challenge tomorrow, I would rather you spend the money on the challenge to put towards an interface. The money that you'd spend on the challenge tomorrow would not cover an interface. It is a very affordable thing. I would rather you do it that way. So like, if you're looking at your interface right now and you're like, like, it's a very cheap interface, don't join the challenge tomorrow. Like, I'd rather you spend that money, put that money towards an interface, to get something better there. Again, like, as soon as you go to a Focusrite, even the Behringer Euphorias are actually somewhat decent. Like, you're actually able to start like making some good stuff, then you're fine. Again, like, then there's like a law of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns just looks like this. Like, so if we have a quadrant here like this and like this, the law of diminishing returns is like this, where there's money that you spend, and it doesn't matter. Like, law of diminishing returns, like, could be time that you spend on anything, or but let's just say money, right? Let's put it, and then let's do quality up here. Qual. So let's say like the money is, let's say you spend like, let's say up to $2,000 on an interface, right? And then over here is like, let's say the $7 Temu one, right? Like, there's this initial spike that you get, and then it starts to kind of like trail off, right? And so like the $600 interface to the $2,000 interface, is there a lift? Yes. Is there enough of a lift that most people would be able to tell? No. And like, that's like, Jim Little just made that video where he's like comparing the different like the interfaces to the different preamps and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, well, yeah, like, we can hear a difference, but like, to what extent? Like, the $100 and $200 interface all the way to the $2,000 preamp. It's like, does it really make that much of a difference? And so it does matter, right? But like, I find that this spot right here is usually around the like the $100 to $200 range. Before I say that, I actually need to go to Sweetwater and look at what a Focusrite is right now. Look, I got stuff on my cart. What do I have on my cart? Oh, Fishman Fluence, yeah. I need some Fishman Fluence pickups in my 7-string, because the Fishman Fluence are great. But anyway, if we look up, let's look up interfaces. Um, and so like let's go USB audio interfaces, right? Okay, so Scarlett, yeah, you're gonna look at like $200, $200. The Solo is gonna be like 119. The 4i4 is gonna be 300, so about 200 then. Okay, so I take back a little bit of what I said here. I say about 200. That spot here is gonna be like the $200 price point. Yeah, so if you are dealing with an interface that's really cheap, like I'm talking like sub $100, I'd probably like upgrade it. Yeah, the Focusrite you've had for 6 years now, Michael. Yeah, exactly. They're fantastic. They're absolutely awesome. Can't go wrong with them. But yeah, I've noticed that, like the quality like of those is like right there. Like it is like the best bang for buck, right? Everybody talks about the best bang for buck. That's what the law of diminishing returns is. You just want to find the best bang for buck. And then there are other people out there that are willing to take a 3% or, up to 20% increase in sound quality, and they're willing to spend 10x, right? So like you're not getting a 10x sound quality boost. You're getting a 5, 10, 15% sound quality boost for 10 times the price. So just keep that in mind, right? So that's how I like to look at that. Let me make sure I hit one more question. Again, the mix challenge. If there's still spots available, go to the link in the description or in the chat here. Again, I'll go ahead and put this back in. Click on that and join if you want to join tomorrow. We're going to be going live every day for 3 days. There will be recordings available if the time does not work for you. And I will be doing a mixed review on Saturday. So I figured most people have Saturdays off for the most part, at least. And so I wanted to make sure that I could at least do a live mixed review on Saturday. There will be recordings of that as well. You can also submit your music beforehand for the review. Like day 1, we're building the foundation of a mix. Day 2, we're going to shape the sound like a pro. Day 3, we're going to master the song, and then we're going to do mix review. And if you do everything that I do in the challenge, you will walk away with a professional sounding song by the end of this, right? That's the goal. Here's how it works. It is live July 30th. That's tomorrow to August 1st with the mix review day on Saturday, August 1st. You can join me live every day at noon Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be about an hour to 2 hours per session. You can join anywhere in the world, and there will be recordings available. This is for rock and metal producers, artists, engineers, ready to make their mixes sound professional. Again, without the overthinking of plugins, second guessing every single one of your moves. If you feel like you've been almost there for years or months or decades, this is the thing that's specifically made for you. Again, we start soon, and there's 2 different options to join. Both options give you access to the stems and the recordings and just about everything, but there will be some, like I'll be giving away my presets and everything like that, and some exclusive behind the mix bonus breakdowns, like how I actually work with my clients, handle revisions, deliver an incredible experience from start to finish, some things like that. So if that is something you guys are interested in, then you can go with the VIP experience. But both are going to get you access to the challenge in full with the stems, that is, and with the recordings and the community and the mix review. No matter which option you go with, I will be reviewing your mixes, which is why I have to limit the seats. So if there's still spots available, click the link there in the chat or in the description, and I would love to have you there. Let me go ahead and hit one more question, which was, do I put plugins on the track or put plugins on the actual bus itself, right? So this is one big question. This is kind of an unfortunate answer, but you can do both. And there's actually 2 different schools of mixing. There's a type of mixing called mix down or top down mixing, where you actually start at your master bus. You get all your faders balanced. So no matter what type of mixing you're doing, you should always start by balancing your faders. Get the volume where it's set. This is the most powerful tool in all of your DAW is that fader. So if you're not using that fader, like as much, like you need to use it more than you think you do, just get it balanced. Then you can put either plugins directly on the buses. So take all your drums and put them on the buses, or take all the shells of your drums to put it to a bus, put all your guitars to a bus, whatever you want to do there. You can do it there as well. Then that's what I do. So like I actually, like I'll go ahead and I'll put some compression, some EQ, some compression, maybe some saturation, stuff like that on my drum bus. And then if I need some more, then I'll go down to the individual track layers themselves. and go ahead and throw that in there. And so that's top-down mixing. Bottom-up mixing is where you get all of your faders balanced. Notice how you're balancing your faders on every, like no matter, balancing faders is important, guys. So once you got everything balanced, then you can go ahead and you can throw on individual plugins on each track. So like, okay, so the toms need compression and whatever else, right? But like typically, like I try to do it top-down. I think it's definitely a faster way of doing it. I also think it sounds better because if I compress the overall drums, I'm gluing the drums together, and they sound like they're all together. That's typically how I like it. Again, there are people that do great mixes that do it in both schools of thought. So just pick one and go with it. I like top-down mixing, and if you like the stuff that I mix, then try top-down. There's lots of people that do top-down that do a really good job of it. Like Adam Nolly Get Good, for example. He does top-down mixing, and he does a phenomenal job with it. And yeah, there's lots of different guys that do it bottom up as well. So just pick a route and go for it. But I would recommend, like, if you're going to start out, like, if you're like, I'm not sure what to do, try top-down mixing first is my preferred way of doing it. And then as I need more, I'll go into the individuals. Matt North says, is it easier to solve something if you know the how and what, and of course, you knowing the right and the best tools for the job? Is it easier? I'm going to say this one more time to make sure I truly understand the question. Is it easier to solve something if you know the how and what? And of course, you knowing the right and best tools for the job. Yes, absolutely. My life is a lot easier because I know how these tools work. I know the how, I know the what, I know the why. Like everybody's talking about the how and the what. Nobody talks about the why. Like, why does a compressor do what it does? Why? Like, knowing those kind of things is super helpful. Like, if you understand the why, you start to understand the why you should add it to something. And so it can make your life a lot easier. Like, if you're spending like 7-8+ hours on a mix, like, guys, you got to cut that down. Like, it is taking you a long time to go through there. And a lot of that boils down to you don't know the how, you don't know the what, and more importantly, you don't know the why. So that's why I'm running the mixing challenge. Again, like, we're going 1 hour to 2 hours live every day, and I will have the mix done by day 2. Like, it'll be done. Like, that is minimal hours, and like I'm going to be interacting with you guys there as well. There's just a lot. There's a lot of that interaction that's going to happen, which is going to obviously take the time up. But like we'll go through and we'll track it, and I'll probably have a mix done in like 45 minutes to an hour. And it's because I know what I'm doing. Imagine like my dad is a mechanic, still is, and I used to work with him in high school, before I graduated high school. And so like, after school, I'd go over and I'd help him a little bit as well. And, my dad, like, he could get a job done so much faster than I could and so much better than I could because he knew the tools very well. Like, the tools were an extension of him. When he grabbed a sander, like he did a lot, when I say mechanic, he actually did a lot of body work. So he was a body guy. So he would do like a lot of body work on cars, and he could take a DA sander, like if you guys know what that is, that's awesome. For some of you guys that know that kind of stuff. But you take a DA sander, and he'd like run it along the side of the body, and he'd like fill it with some Mondo, and then he'd just like run it along, and he'd have it like perfectly smooth. And because I didn't know what the tools were doing, I'd make a lot of mistakes, and it would take me a lot longer to fix the stuff. He got a better job from it. It was a lot smoother. It looked really professional, because again, that's what he does. And he also did a lot faster, right? I spent 4 times as long and would get a worse outcome on it. Like I could, like he would end up doing the finishing work for a lot of stuff that I did because he obviously is so much better at it. So he got paid way more than I did, obviously, and should, but he was working less. Like, why? Like, if I'm working more, why in the world is it's because his skill was more valuable. He was very good at what he did. So if you're like, again, if you know the how, the what, and the why, and knowing the job that's right for the tools, like, that's going to be extremely helpful. It's just going to help you with everything. A bit like learning a bit of music theory will help with songwriting. Sometimes knowing what will work can help create something new. Yeah, music theory is a great example of this. I've never known anybody, Andrew. I've never known anybody that's learned music theory and has been upset about it. Like, I know some people, like, there's this like big quote from like one of the Beatles was like, we didn't know any music theory. I think it was one of the Beatles that said that, which I always thought was kind of funny. Like, we're just kind of experimenting. And like, yeah, you can experiment your way through it, or you can learn music theory and be like, yeah, if I use a specific mode or a specific scale, I can kind of elicit a certain emotion. And so immediately, instead of being like, I have 12 notes that I can choose, you're like, I have 7. right? So immediately you're like, I have 7 in these order. That's going to actually help, right? It's like with the different modes. So it's really nice to know music theory. I've never known anybody to learn music theory and then be upset that they knew it. So we'll just put it that way. I love it. Awesome. All right, guys, I've got to get going. I said 15 minutes, like, I don't know, half an hour ago, and I've got to get going. It's almost like 10 o'clock my time, and I got to be ready for the session tomorrow. Again, join the challenge if you haven't already. I think you're really going to enjoy it. There's a lot of good stuff that's there. I'm really excited about it, and I hope that you are too. I'll see you guys all very soon. Peace.